Someone's going to go for 2 and get it at some point.
It's 1:42 in the morning.
Yeah, that's all right. Number 1. Shocker. Ironton.
Man, give me the Trojans.
There we go. Welcome into Overtime, presented by Perfection One. My name is John Bruce, along with Shayne Combs. And welcome to episode 86 of Southern Ohio Sports Authority's Overtime, filmed here at the Chillicothe Sports Card Studio, located in the SOSA dugout in downtown Chillicothe. How you doing tonight, Shayne?
Oh, doing really well. Been a busy week, but a lot of good basketball, a lot to talk about here, and then starting to gear up to kind of get back into routine off the holiday break here.
Yeah, I'm not excited about school. Like, I'm just, I had people asking me this weekend at different games, like, oh, have you had a good holiday break? I'm like, yeah, I wish it was another week. But I know I have part of Monday off. You have to go back on Monday. So my part of Monday off is getting ready to gear up to drive down to Chesapeake. And
yeah, but that's going to be quite a game. So
should be
that's worth the trip.
Yeah, it'll definitely be worth the trip. So looking forward to talking about that. That'll be part of our pre-games throughout the show. So as always, in our description below, you can find the timestamps for whenever we talk about each topic throughout the episode. We'll start with a couple of discussions, and then we will go into boys basketball, then girls basketball. Usually what we do is we talk about some of the best games of the week. Usually a lot of times our streaming games as well, if they aren't the best games of the week. We've been very fortunate so far this year.
We really have. We've had some great games.
And, we do that, then we got standout performances, and then we go into our games of the week for the next week. So that's just kind of our normal breakdown. But also, one of the things in the timestamps, we will mention who's mentioned in the standouts, because that way, if, you're looking to see if Timmy's big game was in there, and all of a sudden you're like, well,
Timmy? That was the best you had there?
I'm not sure if we have a Timmy in the area right now. So we've got, I didn't want to go with like little Johnny because I was Johnny.
Yeah.
We probably don't have any Jimmies at this point either. It's like, it's about the Jimmies and the Joes, or Darla's and the I don't know.
This is all my fault that I even went there. I should have just let you go with Timmy and moved on.
I haven't shown you the new intro that may go on this episode. I don't know.
Nice.
Because we're getting rid of Dewey. Sorry, Dewey. Because he's only been on one episode this season. So it's kind of Shayne heavy. No offense. We do have like a weird part where for some reason we said...
That could go a lot of different directions.
Yeah, for some reason we had a part where we both said like a pretty famous current number a bunch of times within like 5 seconds, and that's going to get thrown in there, which if I can figure out how to delete it, that might only be on there for a few, because kids probably aren't going to say that, hopefully, when we go back to school. Hopefully they'll be just done with that at that point. But like I said, we have our discussions throughout, and you will see when we talk about each topic throughout. So I know we had a Christmas. Do you have a good New Year?
Oh, outstanding. Yeah. Just like I said, throughout the holiday break, a lot of time with family and just kind of a chance to relax. And then I've really, really enjoyed the basketball. Like you said, throughout our streams, we've been very spoiled from the standpoint of some really, really good basketball games on both the boys and girls side. And then I've even had a chance to just sit back on the couch and turn some outstanding games on. So probably watched, I'd say, north of 10 basketball games this past week, and just really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was able to get out to the Spartan Classic down at Alexander on Friday. Me and Raymond Gleedle went down there on Friday. Saturday, I was able to get over to the Chad Hudson Classic for about 2.5 games over there in Leesburg. Just great events overall. We'll talk about a couple of the games from there that were really, good competitive games. We'll talk about those a little bit throughout our discussions, but also just class events from really good people. One of the things that I got out of those events is, I haven't been to Alexander a whole lot. The Alley is a top tier gym. Now they also have Lou Horvath, Sweet Lou from, that does the games at the Convo. So Raymond didn't know that, and he's like, man, do they just do everything like the Convo? I go, no, I think the Convo does everything like them because it's the same people are doing the stuff. So if you go to a game at Alexander and you hear it's time to rock and roll in the Alley instead of the Convo, well, it's because it started in the alley with Lou, and now he does an outstanding job on all of that. Just brings so much atmosphere to the gym. So we're going to talk about some atmosphere. You know, heck, we can talk. Did you see the Wheelersburg thing?
Yeah, really, really cool.
was-
Well, I mean, there's just no other word for it. Just a lot of time and effort. You talk about attention to detail. You know, you basically anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes to announce some starters, and but you know, you put that type of attention to detail, and it just takes your atmosphere to a whole different level. You know, kids love that. And then, like I said, you just showcase your program throughout the entire area because, you know, people see that and it kind of challenges them to do better. Really, really neat.
Well, my brother texted me. He was like, "Man, that's good for a college." I'm like, "Yeah," and it's just Wheelersburg. Also, for me with Wheelersburg, it also, you know, highlights their tech department. I'm assuming some other students are involved in that, not just the technical department. It's not just basketball. That's the entire school that's getting highlighted too, because that's you know, if you're just doing that for, you know, one team or whatnot, but it really stands out for that school on like what all they can do as a collaborative effort. That's what I was trying to come up with, this collaborative effort from a bunch of different places to make a really cool atmosphere. And that's just, I mean, I know whenever you guys would come out, Sherman Showtime, like we would get real pumped as just like kids. That made us want to play. And that was the lights go off and, you know, they do the introduction and always had the really big, you know, hearing like it's cruise control and like really getting it. Like that stuff can make younger kids want to stick with it and go through the program. Not like Wheelersburg has trouble getting kids out, like getting really good athletes out at their school, but like, man, that's going to keep some kids like, man, I want to go play for that.
What it does is it gives more people ownership of that night and of that game. It's kind of like what happens on a football Friday night. We talked about it in the fall. If your football team is good or bad or somewhere in between, football Friday night, those 4, 5, 6 home games that you have a year, those are really, really important to your entire athletic program. Well, then your band is playing, your boosters are involved. That's what makes those so special. So when you can bring that into basketball, as you said, there's a lot of different students, a lot of different departments that become invested in that. They take ownership in it, and then it just gives everybody a little bit more excitement for, you know, a Friday night's basketball game, and it kind of gives it that same type of feel in terms of selling the program and just getting a bunch of people involved. I agree. It was one of the cooler things at the high school level I've seen.
Yeah, the really like also it's in the Southeast, so
Right.
You know it's something that you're not seeing from like a big city. You're seeing it from a smaller area that, you know, they obviously care about sports, but it's also, you know, as you said, it gives people ownership of the night and just makes it outstanding. So going from that to some of the other places. So like I got to see at Fairfield. I really like the way they do things there. It's a cool gym. A lot of the gyms in the Shack are fairly similar. I really like the locker rooms being behind the visitors bleachers, like they go through that middle spot. And I like that part instead of going out in the corners, and it kind of separates them a little bit from, you know, where it's harder to get to the locker rooms. Now, you know, at some schools you're walking past the locker rooms when you're coming in because they have to go down those hallways and whatnot. So I like that being a little bit different there in the Shack. I really like the alley of just the 3-sided, and then we were at Miami Trace on Saturday for a really good basketball game that we'll talk about in a little bit too. But that was one of those, like, I love that gym. I think they've done a great job with that new gym.
I agree completely. You know, the new gym, as you were talking there, I just got to thinking the new gym is such a topic of how big or how small should you build your gym. And I don't know if I have the perfect science for that. It's one of those things that a lot of these schools that have built these big schools, John, they've put themselves on the map for postseason opportunities, which I do think are some benefits of selling your school, helping increase your boosters and that budget. Certainly all those things come into play. The problem is sometimes is when you have the really, really big school is how much of a regular season atmosphere are you creating? You know, if you look here locally, beautiful new school down at Waverly. That's provided some really good postseason in volleyball and some different things. on a normal SOC night in volleyball or in girls basketball, how many people are in that gym? Right. Probably not that many when you consider the design of it.
Right.
I think that's fair, right? I mean, same way Southeastern, Pike, and I'm trying to think of some. Wellston has been a tournament site. A lot of times, the gyms are so big that as your school's using it throughout the regular season, I don't know if you create some of those. Now, go to the other side of that. Some of the older gyms that have become pretty small. We were just in one the other night, Unioto Chillicothe. I thought even in last night's gym with Miami Trace and Circleville, that place was starting to fill up, even with the three sides and even with the big home side. So I don't know what the perfect design is, but I do agree with you. I love the third side. If people ever could create the space to do, even if it's not very high, a fourth side, and give it more of an arena feel, I think that would be a neat idea. But I know there's a lot of schools that kind of hit the 95 to 2005 window of the new schools. Those gyms seem to get a little bigger. Now the schools that are coming in here in the last 5 to 10 years, tell me if I'm wrong, they seem to be downsizing a little bit. I think in the mid-state league a little bit. Some really nice gyms, but they went ahead and went with a little smaller capacity. I don't know if you have a take on that. I mean, is the goal to put yourself in position from a locker room standpoint, parking, all those things for tournament access, or are you building it more with just your home base in mind?
Well, I mean, for me, it's hard because, you know, I come from the school that, you know, we were counting the other day when we were setting up over at Unioto. It was like, man, probably 11 to 1,200.
Probably.
I mean, and that's
squeeze 13, 14.
And like you have the stage that has some more room on it, and that's probably where you can fit more people into that. But I love Logan Home's gym. It's just like, for being a Division IV school, it just doesn't feel like a big capacity, because if the road team brings some big numbers in, like I can't imagine that place when Circleville plays. I would guess, just like the Unioto Chillicothe game, it's probably sold out by the freshman JV game. And it just, I feel like they had an opportunity to make it a little bit bigger, but at the same time, if you're not going to fill it up every night, if you're not going to have tournaments, then you don't need to make it huge. If you make it 2,500 seats and you are going to have 1,200 each game, then it's going to feel empty. But if you make it 1,500 seats, even if you have 1,200, then it feels pretty full at that point.
You know what's ironic is if the fan is comfortable, it's probably not hurting the atmosphere, right? You know what I mean? It's one of those things I found that out of my playing days, I started coaching so young and coached for a long, long time, then did a little media access or whatever. Like, you know, I haven't maybe taken in the fan experience as much as I should sometimes. And that's what I've started to find is a lot of times if you go in and it's a comfortable place to park and a comfortable place to go and find a seat, there's a good chance it's going to lack some atmosphere. So no, I don't know the perfect balance of it all, but it is an interesting debate. But I do love when I go to these schools just to kind of be nosy and walk around and see some of the facilities. And man, we were at a place last night, Miami Trace, I talked about in the fall. What a beautiful campus that is.
Oh, they've done such a great job with that. And that's a school district that continues to grow too. So they've built their way into it, I think.
I agree.
Like I thought really when it opened, I almost thought it was too big compared to what the pit was. But now being in it last night, I was like, well, this is about perfect because you have the big home side, which was pretty well filled up last night. The visitor side wasn't as filled, but it started to throughout the night. I'm guessing like when like Courthouse goes in there after going in and beating them in the McDonald's Classic, like that's going to be a pretty big crowd. And Chillicothe Jackson go there, I'm sure the crowds are going to fill up as well. So and then I love the student section being completely separate too. That's one of my favorite things is when the student section can be separate and behind a basket. That just, to me, adds to it even more.
No, it does. And, you know, I always think of how it adds to the sportsmanship and the different things or whatever. Like, you know, I remember we always talk back in the day, you know, I mean, it was, you'd put your student section behind the visiting bench on purpose. Nowadays, that would make people way too nervous. You know what I mean? So like, I agree with you. It takes the modern day atmosphere. How can we get kids involved? How can we get pep band involved? Talking about getting different groups involved, right? And you give them different places and different access to set up, and they become an incredible piece of the atmosphere when they're able to put the students down right behind the basket. I agree with that.
Now, here's a student section story for you.
Okay.
My first year of coaching, I was my first year out of high school, and I'm coaching, or I'm helping coach hoops, and I'm in school at the time, so I'm on winter break. I come back and help, and our bench is different than where it was when I played the year before. They switched the benches, so the student section was behind the visitors bench. So the first month, everything's fine. I go to school. I come back on that, like, next Friday. I go down to the other bench. They're like, no, we're back on this side. So something happened in that, like, 6 games where they're like, nope, we can't do that.
I can see that.
We can't be doing that. So I do think it's hard to have the bench right in front of the student section, but I mean, there are still a few places that have like little things like that. But I love it when it's behind the basket, because then they can be rowdy and everything, and it's a little harder to really impact things than that way, but or get in trouble really from there. But one of the things and this is something Raymond kind of taught me was the big baseline behind the baskets. Miami Trace has really big baselines. I like that. You just give more room, where if it's right behind the basket, then you have a chance for injury to happen there as well, in case we've seen things where people crash in the walls. You give even more room in that aspect. So I do like that as an idea as well. So I like a lot of the new gyms. There's not really any that I don't see some positives from, but I really love the atmospheres at a lot of these places.
And it'll be interesting to see here in this next decade to see who's next. Because you have a lot of these gyms that were probably built, maybe been remodeled since, but built right in the late 60s, early 70s, maybe 80s. And those are going to kind of be the ones that are next up. And it'll just kind of be interesting to see. Some schools are choosing to do more auxiliary gym, keep and remodel their current gym to play in. That's an interesting thing. So I do know from education side of things, the need of a few extra small gyms are really, really needed in some of our schools, even in the small school. So I can't even imagine in the bigger school. But that's interesting too, because if you can't afford to build your main gym, maybe some schools are remodeling and then putting a couple extra little workout facilities somewhere on your campus.
Yeah, and then one other thing for those places they're going to build, even if you don't do a second level, do a mezzanine. And mezzanines are great, because then you I think some parents can go up there and really cheer the way they want to cheer and be a little further away. But also, I don't love sitting in the bleachers all the time, so I like being able to stretch my legs and stand. So I would like to see more mezzanines. But one of the things that we've seen so far this season, and this is going to go into our basketball just overall, we've seen a lot of low scoring. We haven't seen a ton of scoring, especially in the half court. Can you have you seen a difference in the way the game's called, in the way offenses are executed, or is it just kind of just the defense is getting better, maybe more athletic, which makes it harder to score in the half court?
I think the answer to all that is yes. Now, I don't want to repeat too much here, because on our past shows we talked about, and I don't think, keep in mind when we're saying things, sometimes it's not even, it's not like a negative thing. It's just stating what it is. You know what I mean? Athletes are bigger, faster, stronger. So there's 10 people on a basketball court that are all, compared to 25 years ago, bigger, faster, stronger. So they're taking up more space. They're a little faster. They're a little quicker. They're jumping higher. I don't think anyone can debate that.
Right.
So yes, we talked about film last week. Scouting has improved. Scouting's at an all-time high. So you can take away things. You can do different things. I do think the one thing basketball has done, and I'll let you decide if it's good or bad, is they've kind of started to lean its game toward its defense. Like we're sitting on a Sunday afternoon, down here in the studio, the guys have had the NFL on and stuff. We've been watching the games and stuff. And it got me thinking as we were preparing for the show, if you look at the game of football, in the last 20 years, everything on the rule side has been to favor the offense. You can't hardly touch the wide receiver. They protect the quarterback a little bit more. A lot of different things. Let's get more snaps. Let's get up tempo. Let's do different things to get athletes in space. Sport of volleyball. Outside of girls flag football, I read an article the other day that volleyball is growing faster than any other female sport in America. Well, why? Well, in the last 20, 25 years, they've used the libero. They've picked up the pace. They backed off the skill set a little bit more and allowed more athleticism to go so they don't stop the play, keep playing. Offensive, entertainment, fast, fun. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I think all of those things are a factor. Now, let's break it down more into the basketball, and here's where I want to get your take. What I see is because of the athleticism, more offenses have gone to the 4 out or the 5 out. Well, as I talked about in weeks past with the Little League culture, a lot of the role player skill sets have dropped. So when you're spreading it out and you're asking that 3rd, 4th, 5th person to do a lot with the basketball, it can really ugly up. It can really make it difficult to create flow on the offensive end. I don't know what your take is, but I see less people running the continuity offense. I see secondary break, and then I see a lot of 4 out, and I see a lot of one-on-one, pound the basketball, drive it as hard as you can. Whereas you don't see as many flex side to side, shuffle, reverse the offense, motion, reverse the offense. And you get a lot of coaches that are just fighting kids on reverse the basketball, make the midline shift a time or two, and watch the percentage of offense go up. So I think all of those things combined, so like when you're rattling those things off, I was like, yes, 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 yes. And I think all of that combined was just made for offense to drop a little bit, but specifically in the scrimmage area, I just see teams struggling. And when I say teams, I mean good basketball teams struggling to just play half-court offense. Your thoughts?
Well, I watched a team yesterday. It was Blanchester, not even in our area. They're down like 7 points in the last 2 minutes against McClain. They score 6 quick points. Then they get possession with under a minute left. They didn't get shot off. Like they could not run an offense. But when they were free flowing and running, everything was good. I don't know if it's I don't know. When I first got back into coaching, because I took a few years off, got back into it, my first day, I'm like, man, this is going to take a long time to go through this. And like kids understand offense. They can understand these things if you just take the time to do it. Kids will run continuity offense. They will move the ball back and forth if you have them do it. Like, but I do think at times, just running the 4 out or 5 out is easier. And I don't know if
it's way easier to teach.
It takes less time.
Yeah.
And then you can put in your quick hitters and whatnot. But like, I mean, what are you going to, like, let's say you have 5 really good quick hitters. Well, you can run them twice a game at most. I mean, if you're running them more than that, the team you're playing, like you can probably score doing literally anything if you're running your quick hitters a bunch. So I just think it's almost not overall lazy, but I do think it's a way of, just a little bit easier. And I think it goes without fighting the kids, without fighting the parents at all of like, hey, was it Timmy I used? Hey,
Timmy.
Hey, Timmy's getting the ball. Timmy's got a one-on-one. Let Timmy cook. I mean, it's like, no, it's just move the ball and use your bigs, use your screeners. And it's you heard the Peebles kids in their interview the other day of like, they have 6'5" freshman Keegan Puckett. Like, hey, we get the ball into them. That makes our job easier on the outside. Well, yeah, that's kind of the basis of basketball. It's like if you use everybody, and that's why Peebles is off to an 8-0 start, is because they're a really unselfish team. But a lot of people aren't doing that. And the continuity offense can be kind of boring, but it's not boring? Winning. Yeah. And also, you get the ball with 45 seconds left in the quarter. You can say, hey, one shot, let's run our stuff. And, instead of you taking a shot with 10 seconds left, then you got to play scramble defense. Like, no, you're taking your shot with 3 seconds left and either score or you go back to the locker room or the bench, either way, but you're not giving that team a chance to, take the momentum if you can run your continuity offense, if you can run your stuff. And I just think it's not that difficult to do, and I think more people need to do it.
It's interesting what you said there, because I see a lot of teams, they're pushing pace. Like, let's just, I know we'll get to it in more detail in a second, but like Circleville last night against Miami Trade. Circleville, you could tell early in the game, the game plan was we want to push the pace. We want to beat them down the floor and try to get a good look before they can set up. Well, you see that with a lot of teams. They'll get out and they'll push, and in secondary break, they're athletic, they share the ball, they do a lot of different things, right? Mm-hmm. Now what happens, though, is you get into the offense and how you flow in the half court. They're so anxious to take the first shot that a big part of half-court offense is the inability to reverse the basketball. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what happens with the continuity side to side. So when I'm using that word, I'm talking about maybe, again, flex, shuffle, motion, any of those types of things that where I throw it here, we do this action, and when we reverse it, we do the same action back. Mm-hmm. And when I think of some teams, I'll be using an example in girls basketball later that's really helped the program in a transition time here because they have some consistency in their X's and O's throughout the transition. And I think it's really valuable. But I see some really, really good teams. I know some people have been really frustrated with shot selection. Mm-hmm. I've had people reach out to me. I've seen comments on the Twitter X. I've seen some comments, just on some chat things and some different things where people are just frustrated to no end over shot selection. Mm-hmm. And it's a fair point. But a lot of that is in the scheme of the different things. Let me throw this at you too. Do you think the shot clock could just help organize the game? Because I see some teams get into the second half and they start to take the air out of the ball way too early. And I don't know if that would help just organize the tempo of the game a little bit or whatever. I don't know. I think basketball, I go back to the late 80s when the three-point line had come in, and I see what it did to kind of change the game and excite the game. I think basketball is in desperate need of just something a little bit different that could just spark the game a little bit in terms of the way it's played. I don't know. Am I stretching there a little bit? I've always been a component of the shot clock. I just think that's an example of something I think the shot clock could help organize our offensive possessions into these segments of time.
Well, it's coming. Like maybe 2 years. In about 2 years, we'll have the shot clock. It's coming. So, like, if you're really against the shot clock, just be ready. Like, we're going to have to – there's going to have to be some things fixed on the sidelines of, like – making sure people can run the shot clock. And
understanding rules and things like that. Yeah,
but it's coming. So I think so because, like, we'll use that Circleville game as an example. Last night, they started to really take the air out of the ball early in the fourth and stop looking at the basket. Well, they were fortunate. They got an outstanding point guard and then were able to, like, play good enough defense to, like, hold it off until they – you could tell Coach Callahan was like, no, let's go. And at that point, they were able to, like, chip back away and extend the lead back out. So I do think so because then you can't take the air out of the ball. Like maybe you can run clock. If it's a 30-second shot clock, you can run 20 seconds off before you get into a quick hitter or whatnot. But I do think that the shot clock will organize things and make it to where you will have to be able to get into some stuff. You're going to have to be able to get into some sort of action late in a shot clock to be able to get a good look. Or, I know some people are worried that it's going to be a lot of bad shots, a lot of forced shots. Well, watch the game now. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of bad shots, a lot of forced shots now. So you add the shot clock in, and that can make things, maybe add a little more skill into it to where it's like, hey, we gotta try to run this action to get that shot off. Or, 6 seconds left. Let's get the ball to our best guy. Let them go.
Yeah, and I also think I also think what happens into January, and this is what I love about coaching. This is what I love about watching teams improve and identities and role identification. I also think as you get into January, February, you start to see that. Like I watched a particular girls basketball team really struggle against zone throughout the year. Well, I watched them the other day, and I thought they made a really nice adjustment to. They're a guard-heavy team, very talented guard post is coming along, and I would watch them run zone offense earlier in the year, and they'd X the post like a lot of people do, and teams were just extending out on their guards, and they were daring you to throw it inside. Where you're throwing it inside, you might be throwing it into your fourth, fifth, sixth best player. What they started to do was use that person as a bit of a high screener. Now they let the guards start to penetrate them, and they started to really slice and dice the zone the other day and had a big third quarter. I thought that was the turning point in the game. So I love to see the coaching aspect. I love to watch a team play, then watch them 2 weeks later, and then 2 weeks later, and see that improvement. And then I think what also happens is that role identification helps this shot selection that we're talking about, and that should help half-court offense a little bit too. But it's really, really tough to win at the highest level. If you're, like I said, if you're going to compete for a winning season, if you're going to compete in the postseason, if you can't get stops on the defensive end in the scrimmage area and execute offensively in the scrimmage area.
Yeah, I completely agree 100%. So now we are going to jump into our actual boys basketball talk. So if you want to hear more about that, just reach out to us on our socials or, comments below on any of the things that we comment on. I know we have the SOSA Overtime X account as well, and that we will share some of the stuff out and whatnot. So if you want to talk about more of it there, there's different ways to get a hold of us. Or if you just see us at a game, just
and that has happened more and more over the last couple of weeks. I've really enjoyed that. Always feel free to talk the game. I love doing that.
Yeah, and if you come up to me with like a complimentary thing, I don't know how to deal with those. So if you think like, oh, he's kind of this dude's kind of weird, like, yeah, no one says nice things to me, so we appreciate everything.
Yeah, if you come up and call John an idiot, he's saying he'll respond.
I'm like, I'm
used to that.
Yeah, like that's a typical thing. So now let's jump to one of our streaming games of the week last week, which was Saturday. Just real quick, I don't know what happened. Like we had YouTube was working for other streamers, and it just wasn't working for us last night. So we get back to the studio and try to figure things out, and immediately the stream goes up. It was a weird night, but we appreciate the people that have gone back and rewatched it because there's a lot of time and effort that goes into making sure those streams work. It didn't work last night, unfortunately, but I'm glad some people are getting out and watching it because Kenneth does a great job on camera. You and Carson do a great job calling the game, and it's just our sponsors put a lot of money into it to support the students and support us. So unfortunately the stream didn't go up last night, but I'm glad a lot of you have gone out and found it so far, and we hope that you do so as well because it was an outstanding game, a 57-53 win for Circle over Miami Trace. Can you tell us a little bit about that game?
Yeah, definitely go back and watch it because it was a phenomenal basketball game. You're talking about two, on the boys' side, you're talking about two teams, one D3, one D4, do I have that right?
Yeah.
That are going to be district title type of contender basketball teams, which is really high-level basketball. And they went toe-to-toe last night, and it was a slugfest back and forth. I thought Circleville had an unbelievable focus. And just they were so ready to play. We had the privilege, Carson and I, of sitting down next to the Circleville bench, and I was just so impressed with just how locked in they were in terms of their game plan, the 2 or 3 keys. They came out with great physicality. They ended up taking 2 charges in the first half. One was Blaine Fowler, one was Jack Klein. I know Bigham was winning extra possessions, diving on the floor, 50-50 balls. So they set a tone from a physicality standpoint, John, early, but then they also really pushed the tempo. They put 20 points on the board in the first quarter. I think 6 Tigers scored. And as you said, Cole Nungesser, he was terrific. The 6'2" senior point guard. I had him for 28 on my sheet, and he was just He was able to get off really early to settle his team in, and then even when Miami Trace started to make a move, he hit about 2 or 3 mid-range shots in the second quarter that were incredibly difficult shots. And then late in the game, I thought he did a good job handling the basketball against the trap. Miami Trace, as you'd expect him to do. But it was terrific. I mean, 20-7 in the first quarter, 30-21 at halftime, 45-32 at the end of 3, and then there was a 15-3 run, I believe it was, that got Miami Trace all the way back to within 48-47. Guthrie and Baker got going in the second half. They got it all the way back to 1, and then Fowler hit a big-time runner to kind of stop the bleeding a little bit, and then Circleville did just enough down the stretch to win it. But, yeah, I can't say enough. Fowler had 11. Thought Riley Jenkins was really good, working hard against Guthrie on the one end, making him work on the other, and then Ed Kirk off the bench. But then, Miami Trace had 4 guys in double figures. The point guard had 15. Gage Bowers, and then
he's a stud.
Baron Phipps with 11 to go with Guthrie and Baker. So I don't know. I mean, it just felt like it was a really physical game, but I just felt like Circleville was the one that punched first and a little bit more often. Now Miami Trace, as you'd expect them to do with their winning, they woke up and they got involved. They became a big player in the game, but I thought they ended up maybe digging the hole a little too deep to come all the way out of.
Well, it's just, one of the things that I think if you're a Miami Trace fan, you still feel pretty good because you're like, man, we had a horrible first quarter and we came back, got down 1. I mean, they battled back to get back into that game. But as you said, Blaine Fowler made some big time plays. Nungesser was the best player on the court last night.
Yes, he was.
And he carried them in that first half and then made some huge plays down the stretch as well. But yeah, that Miami Trace team, I still feel really good about, especially in Division III. Although we've seen some scores from Marietta lately that are like, whew. I mean, when you go running clock on Megs, that's pretty good. Yeah. So, but for Miami Trace, you had to replace 2 starters from last year that were both extremely important pieces of that team, and at first it maybe seemed like it was a little bit easier, but now as things aren't as easy, it's getting a little more difficult, but I think that's going to make them better in the end. Those are 2 really good, really well-coached teams that we saw last night. I like the pieces. I like the depth at Circleville. Circleville has more depth than I expected.
Yes, they did.
And that was, to me, I thought that may have been the difference in the game, was that they could just keep running guys in, especially in the front court. I mean, they used Holloway a little bit in the second quarter to give Jenkins and Kirk a little bit of a break because, I mean, Guthrie's Guthrie. But I thought they played great team defense as well. So a lot of times when you see Guthrie, he can find guys out of the high post, out of the block, because he's getting double and tripled. Well, they were really smart about when they were sending the help, when they were sending the double, and they were playing really good help side defense where they're getting a lot of deflections. And because of that, it made it to where Guthrie wasn't an effective passer where he normally is. Because normal games, you're going to see him with 3, 4, even 5 assists in a game, where last night I know he had a more difficult time finding the open teammates.
I didn't think he ended up getting enough touches. Again, I know I always see it through a point guard's eyes, and I always look at it through on the one side, Circleville playing, and we just said it, in secondary break, scoring scoring early, taking quick shots, but pretty good shots. Yeah. I've seen them execute a little bit better in the half court on film than I did last night, but I think Miami Trace had a lot to do with that. Yeah. I think that's why they were trying to go early, so that they didn't have to go against that defense. But I thought Circleville did a great job early in the possession, taking Guthrie away, and then as they started to speed Miami Trace up a little bit, I thought Miami Trace missed him a little bit. When you're playing with someone like a Guthrie, you've got to anticipate when he's going to come open. You're not just going to dribble it down the court and say, okay, post up and toss it in there, right? You got to come down, you got to move the ball, and as he's moving and he's sealing, you've got to anticipate. There was a couple times where Circleville was hedging the hard ball screen, where on the roll, as he started to come back down the middle, the next pass, again, you got to get your eyes in on him, because if he can touch it, then you can play off of him, and offense becomes a lot easier to play. So Miami Trace found a little rhythm. They only scored 7 points there in the first quarter. But I thought that was a big part of the game, as I simply didn't think he was able to touch the basketball in the paint enough to play off of him.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because it's just he's not a point guard. He's able to, you can do so many different things off of his skill set, and I agree. They probably need to get him the ball even more, even with where he didn't have like a super obvious size advantage in that one, because the really good size of Circleville in that game. But it was just overall, I was really impressed with what Circleville was able to do. And as I said, Miami Trace, nothing to worry about. Nah. But when you have a really good coaching staff like Miami Trace does, hey, you can go back and now you can fix some things, and the kids are going to buy into it a little bit more now that you've seen some losses happen, and not necessarily a bad thing at all. So for Circleville, really good win, and really maybe a win that's going to help them realize, kind of what we talked about in the preseason was like how impressive we thought they were going to be. Well, not a slow start, but a couple of losses in there, and now a really big win to build off of as they continue on throughout the season. I do think both of these teams have a great chance to win a district title as well.
Yeah, they both passed the eye test immediately when they walked out on the court. Long, athletic, good guard play, good post presence, just really complete basketball teams in their respective conferences. You're starting to get into that time of year now where the conference races are going to really, and both those teams are going to be right in the middle of their respective races.
Yep, and then one of the things that we do each week is our Perfection 1 collision of the game, which is typically from one of our streaming games. This week we'll go, as you mentioned, Shayne, Circleville, Blaine Fowler took a big charge in a really good help side position to help the Tigers in their huge road win at Miami Trace. Just a great unselfish play by Fowler. You saw a couple other charges taken in that game, but that one was the one that really stood out to me, and that is why he's going to be our collision of the game. And remember that you can find Perfection 1 in Pickaway, Pike, and Ross counties, and you will find why they are highly recommended.
Yeah, big play, tone setter. I said it. They came out and they really wanted to establish themselves from a physicality and aggressive standpoint, and those are toughness plays. He's taking the charge, winning the 50-50 ball, whatever it may be, and so give Fowler a lot of credit doing it really on both ends. I thought he was a really impressive two-way player last night.
Yeah, I did as well. As you mentioned, he had that really big late basket as well.
Tough shot.
And it was a 1-point game, makes it a 3-point game, and then they were able to kind of reconvene a little bit after they were reeling for a bit, but great adjustments there from Circleville for the big win. So that was one of our two boys streaming games of the week last week. But man, the first one was an absolute doozy as well. From the Township on Tuesday, our last stream of 2025, we had Huntington 61, Vinton County 50. Don't look at the final score and think you know what happened in the game, because it's an overtime game presented by Perfection 1. And man, it was all Vinton County for about the first 20 minutes of the game, and then the last 12 minutes in overtime, all Huntington. Just an outstanding display by Huntington. 21-8 Vinton County at the half. Yes, 8. 21-8 at the half, and then 29-12 with about 4:04 left in the third quarter. And then after that, man, Huntington started hitting some shots. And then really their defense started to pick up, and they come back for the big-time win.
Yeah, you knew you were going to get a real urgent Vinton County team coming in. Vinton County got off to a 3-1 start, John. Then they had a really freak injury to their point guard on a day off school where he was just at work. And, obviously thoughts and prayers to that young man. We hope he's okay. We don't know if he'll be able to return this year. But so you lose a guard, Jake Maxwell was that kid's that young man's name.
Only a sophomore, thankfully.
A sophomore, and then but then all of a sudden they lose 3 in a row. So they're entering that game at 3-4, and they had come in and man, they were locked in. Obviously Montgomery and Yates and Moore all shooting the 3 ball, all doing a good job trying to all do their part to take over some of the ball handling responsibility. And I thought they come in. They had some physicality. Huntington had some chances at the rim, but I thought Vinton County was just trying to have a physical presence and contest every shot and do some things. Through all of the blowout situation, Huntington slowly but surely just established themselves on the glass, and they really dominated that statistic throughout the entire evening. I thought Zayden Baker was really, really good. Yes. I think we had him for 13 rebounds. I thought he was really, really good in that category. And then once you got into the second half, Frankie Hirsch got going, and obviously we know what kind of talent he is. Had 27 on the night, 8 of 9, I believe it was, from the free throw line. And in overtime, that's where your score difference comes from, is he just took over the game. And once they got into bonus, they couldn't pressure him without fouling. And then once he went to the line, he didn't miss in the OT, and that was where that kind of comes from. Huntington comes up now on 3 straight, I believe on the road. I don't have that in front of me. Zane Trace, Adena Southeastern. And I think that Zane Trace game, we'll get to some games to watch maybe later, but this is a good time to mention. this Huntington team is on the verge of really taking that next step. And this is going to be an important stretch for them. These are the types of games you come back and you kind of steal it, and it could really jumpstart the second half of your year.
Yeah, and then those all three are on the road. And you kind of mentioned the St. Trace boys were there, and thankfully for Coach Cassidy, I think they stayed until at least it got towards overtime. Because if they would have left about halfway through the third, they're like, oh, why are we here? It's like, well, that's why. You can see what that team can do in a hurry as they scored 49 points in 16 minutes of action. So I mean, that's not a whole lot of teams do that. But you mentioned in that overtime they really got going from the free throw line. Calvin Hirsch, I thought, was really good in the game. He had 7 points, 9 rebounds. He hit a couple of free throws in overtime. And then Calvin Manson, who really, I think, was 1 for 2 from the field, wasn't even taking shots. I thought he did a really good job defensively. He knocked down a couple of free throws in overtime. And then, as you said, Frankie Hirsch really helped put that game away. But for Huntington, you only had the one player in double figures with Hirsch. But, man, you mentioned Zayden Baker was really good. The 13 rebounds. He also had 4 assists. Brendan Smith had a really good second half. He had 7 points all in the second half. Eli Airy scored 5 in like a really short time in that second half before he fouled out. And then Rhett Phipps made a couple of really big plays for them. He didn't play very much, but, man, he made a couple of big plays. He had a putback late that got them within 2, and then he scored the last basket of the game, which is an outstanding play. If you see our baseline-to-baseline highlights, Frankie Hirsch made just a ridiculous play, just kind of dove, saved the ball.
Yeah, like the game was over. You and I were talking about something else, and then all of a sudden I looked up and I'm like, what did he just do? You know what I mean? Like, it was like that good. Like, but no, you're right. Early on in the run, I thought guys like Ousley and Thacker and Maynard and the young kid off the bench, Briggs. Those guys, those guys did a real nice job of just making the hustle plays and winning those 50-50 balls and getting the extra possession. You're right, though. When Huntington started to go, it flipped. You started to get guys like Phipps. You started to get Airy didn't score much, but I remember he had a big 3 during the big run. And you're right. It was just some hustle plays here and there that kind of flipped the script. Once it got back into single digits going in the fourth quarter, you could just kind of sense the momentum going. And again, we just talked about it in terms of half-court offense. You almost felt like a little bit of the fourth quarter, Vinton County was like wishing the clock away. And that's always a dangerous spot. I think you coach long enough, you play long enough, you've all been there. And it's just it's kind of a tough spot to get into, because then all of a sudden you start shooting the ball like, well, am I supposed to take this shot? Or where other teams kind of look at it as like, hey, I'm open for 3. I've been knocking them down all night. I'm going to stick the dagger in you. If you miss those, again, we've talked about that. It looks like a discipline. So it's really it's really a fine line of how you put a team away and not taking the air out of the ball too early, especially if that team can really get after you and cause some problems. In Vinton County, obviously, in terms of down a guard. Still trying to find itself maybe in some of those time and score situations.
Yeah, the big difference in the game, and it was one of the things we talked about in the pregame, and I was so, I wasn't glad that it ended up, turning, because I don't really care who wins either way, but I was like, man, the team that wins the rebounding is going to win the game. And for gathered rebounds in the game for individual players, it was 33-11.
Oh, yeah.
Huntington just dominated.
No, they really did.
And it wasn't until
there's times if they didn't knock the ball out of bounds, you wonder if Vinton County was ever going to wrap up possession.
Right. Yeah, and so they did not take the lead until the last minute of the game, and then it was like, oh, okay, I don't look as dumb at this point. But yeah, it was for Vinton County. That, man, there's when you're trying to replace your point guard, I do think that there's a lot of positives to look at for them, because they play super hard. I like the Prater kid, the freshman that came in and did some ball handling as well. You mentioned Ousley. I thought Ousley was outstanding. And then obviously Montgomery and Yates. I mean, that's literally a kid in each class as well that you can kind of build around throughout this season. So I think they're going to get better. And just got to see, almost like a shooter, where you just got to see it. The ball go through the hoop, and you realize they just got to get a win, and then things are going to start to
go. Yeah. And we should say too, think about how both teams stayed with it. Like, Huntington comes all the way back, they take the lead by 2. Remember, Moore drives and scores. He's at the free throw line a couple seconds ago to win the game. Put a good stroke on it, just went in and out. But it was just a back and forth of both teams kind of staying with it. And like I said a couple weeks back when I turned off the Pike didn't come back against Westfall, I hope everybody ended up staying the course and not quitting on that game at halftime.
Yep, 100%. It does not get any easier for Vinton County, though, as they are at Meigs this week, and Wellston, who's off to a 6-2 start. Coach Briggs will be on the Coach's Call-In show on Sunday night. And then Saturday they get Zane Trace. And then an Athens team that I'll talk about in a little bit as well, but they face them coming up as well. So those were our 2 streaming games of the week last week, but we also had another one that I think we had an idea was going to be a really big one. It turned out that it did kind of balance out and ended up being another really good game of Wheelersburg beating Ironton. Both were undefeated coming into the game. Big time win for Wheelersburg, now 4-0 on the season.
Yeah, what an incredible start for them. Just kind of figuring it out as they go, and we understood the physicality and the athleticism that was going to be on both sides. I really enjoyed following the updates. I did not get to see this game, but I really enjoyed following the updates back and forth, and it seemed like it was a really, really tight game. And then in the end, it gets to be winning time, and one team's able to make a few more plays than the other.
Yeah, and it's a big rivalry game down there, a non-conference rivalry game. We've seen them throughout, and overall, just they're really proud communities, and you knew that would be a really highly contested game. But Wheelersburg now 4-0. They also beat a really good Waverly team on Friday night, which is when you saw that intro get introduced as well. We'll talk with Coach Prater about that whole thing on the Coach's Call-In show as well. So if you missed it, go back and rewatch that. So Braylon Rucker led with 15 for the Pirates in the game. Hunter Bivens with 12. Landon McGraw with 10. And then when you hear those names, you're like, man, those guys have been around for a while. All seniors. And when you're getting your seniors, and then you have like a Jack Dorr, Xavier Miller, you're getting some really nice pieces, some experienced kids that also played a lot of football, a lot of winning. And that's why you're going to see a lot of winning for this Wheelersburg team on the season.
Well, you get that third person in double figures. That's huge, because I know on the Ironton side, their best players really played at their level, right? I mean, they did what you would expect them to do, and but at the end, sometimes you get that third guy into double figures, and sometimes it's the role players making a play here, making a shot there, that just ends up being the difference.
Yeah, you mentioned that with Ironton, who drops to 7-1. A great start for them. Ashton Lane with 19 points, 11 rebounds, which is about his season average, 19.8, 10.4 rebounds. And then Brycin Mullins, who averages 14, scored 17 in the game. So those guys you expect about, quick math, about 34 points from, and you got 36 from. So you get what you expect out of them, but where you mentioned that third scorer is ultimately the difference in the game. So a great win, and don't be surprised to see these two matching back up at the Convo. I believe it was our Carson Francis told us that the games are going to be district semis are going to be at the Convo again this year. So looking forward to that. And
sign me up.
Yeah, we'll be down there. So it'll be exciting, and really looking forward to that. But man, I can't wait to see these teams in person throughout the year, because you know when you've seen them in football, like, man, these are some really good athletes. Well, now you get to see them do it on the hardwood, and it's going to be really fun. Now, this is a Wheelersburg team that I think, because their season last year was kind of rough, but I think you mentioned it where, last football season was kind of the same, where it was kind of a rough regular season, and
by their standard.
Yeah, by their standard. Yeah. And then they go out and make it to the regional final last year in football, and then obviously they make it to the state final this year. But in basketball last year, they get to the district final after a rough regular season. Well, now they're kind of built up to make another run, the typical Wheelersburg standard, and I think you can see it. And this Ironton team, they graduated one outstanding player, a 1,000-point scorer. Then you had another one who was close to 1,000 points, didn't play last year because he enrolls early at Missouri. And you're like, man, what are they going to do? Well, they're just doing what Ironton basketball has always done, which is, you got great athletes, kind of let them go play, and that's what's happened, and that's why they're off to a 7-1 start as well. Yeah,
no question about it, and it's, you play these tough schedules, and it's interesting to see how people react to losing. Because obviously these programs don't lose a lot, so when you do lose, sometimes does one loss turn into another. It exposes you, which is you want, but sometimes it can really dent your confidence. You're still dealing with high school kids, and it can really dent their confidence a little bit. So that's just something to watch as a couple of these teams play some of these tough games over the holiday break. The teams that won, it can really jumpstart you and get you going. The teams that you lose, how do they handle it? How do they bounce back? How do they learn from it?
Right, exactly. So it's just dealing with that adversity throughout the season, and that's what's going to make you better and give you a chance to make one of those long tournament runs. So one of the things that we've been doing every week is our standout performances. This can be a big game, an achievement, a coaching landmark, a player landmark, just another great game, which we'll talk about a couple more games in here as well. But I want to start with a junior from Hillsboro. Jack Howland scores his 1,000th career point only halfway through his junior year.
Yeah, if you have not had a chance to see this young man play, you really need to do so. Yeah, if nothing else, turn on a stream or turn on something just to get a chance to see his game. He can really, really play. From day one. Now he had the benefit of coming in and playing with an outstanding guard when he was younger, and then now he's kind of turned into the lead guard, and he can create his own shot. He can create shots for others. But then you talk about scoring at all levels. This kid can score in every way possible, and they've played a really tough schedule, and as a result, the record is taking a hit a little bit, but they're starting to show some signs, and obviously. Anytime he has the basketball in his hand, he gives you a chance to be successful. So, yeah, he's a terrific talent. And again, a year and a half left, it's hard to be telling what he'll end up with.
Yeah, he's been outstanding. He had 33 points in their win over Western Brown over at the Chad Hodson Classic, which was their second straight win. We talked about them, I believe, last week, where they've just had
schedule's incredible.
Yeah, schedule's incredible, and then they go play a Lynchburg-Clay team that I watched. Very athletic, a nice team. They go beat Lynchburg-Clay, and then they bounce back with a win against another really athletic team in Western Brown. So just getting those wins, and it's going to make things roll a little bit better for Hillsboro, and then when you have that lead guard that can really score it like Howland can, that's going to make things a little bit easier as well. So congratulations to him. And then we've got another 1,000-point landmark hit, which was on Saturday night down at Jackson. Unioto's Blake Fitch, the senior point guard, last year's SVC and Southeast District Player of the Year. As a senior, has been outstanding so far this year throughout his whole career for the Shermans.
Yeah, he really has. I mean, I've talked about Blake Fitch on the show a little bit in terms of, scoring's not even what I would say is his number one thing. He obviously can score. I mean, he could just score 1,000 points. But if you haven't had a chance to see him play, I think the thing the basketball purists would really appreciate is his ability to control the game as a ball handler. He's an outstanding defender. He's a terrific passer, plays the game with great IQ. Right now, he and that group are struggling a little bit in the scrimmage area to find space off the dribble because, again, they're not shooting it quite as well as I thought they would. Again, they're not executing in the half court. They're not getting a lot of ball reversals, so I think the midline's loading up on them. I think their best basketball is ahead of them. I really do. But then, this comes against the Jackson team that is just really, really impressive. I mean, I turned that film on late last night when we got back, and Jackson got off to a nice start. Played anywhere from 6 to 10 out in front. Unioto defense kept them in the game. Unioto offensively really struggled from the word go. They didn't shoot it well at all. Obviously, Jackson had a lot to do with that, but they held within about 6 to 10, and then Jackson took off or about mid third quarter, and it was ball game over. But if you haven't had a chance to see Jackson play yet, I mean, Jenkins and Simons and Woodard and Wolford and Connor and Jack's Carroll. He killed him off the dribble last night in the first half. Crabtree. I'm probably missing someone, but the size and the physicality, they're so. We talked about it. Like when you would just watch the bodies on cuts and rebounding and different things, Jackson's age, Jackson's physicality just won out, and they're another team. That's real impressive. As we watch a Miami Trace Circleville type of team, Jackson physically matches that mold a little bit of what we're talking about.
Yeah, they're 8-1. They have wins over a really good Unioto team, a 6-2 Unioto team. The battle of one-loss teams last night in Jackson really just had their way in that game. They're just an outstanding team, and that's kind of what you mentioned. They also beat a solid Athens, a Gallia team before dealing with some injuries, and then a good Logan Elm team. I mean, their only loss is at Miami Trace. that game, that rematch at Jackson is going to be one to watch for sure. They also have a couple games with Unioto, or not Unioto, with Chillicothe coming up, and then Courthouse also in league play. So still really tough schedule for Jackson, but man, they're going to win a whole lot of games.
Yeah, Jackson doesn't quite have the length and size of Circleville, but they're all kind of that medium size, but they're so physically gifted that they all play a little bit bigger than they are. So I think that's going to give them the opportunity to match up with some of that size that they're going to face down the road into the tournament. And look, that's a team that left one on the table last year in the postseason. So through all the success in football and different things, when it comes to the sport of basketball, they've got to be playing with a little chip on their shoulder. They got to still have a little bit of that taste in their mouth from a year ago, I would think.
Yeah, with a lot of almost the entire team back from last year as well. So really well coached team. That's the fun types of games to watch as a former coach for you as well. Is like get to watch two coaches that won a whole lot of basketball games match up, and that one is just a heck of a win for Jackson on Saturday night. Speaking of coaches that have won a lot of games, South Webster off to a great start, as pretty typical for the Jeeps as well. But Brycin McClintic had 31 points in their 68-58 win over Minford on Friday night to start SOC 3 play. McClintic, we saw it different times last year. He got a lot of playing time on that state Final Four team, was one of their main guys off the bench. And we knew with Hunter Bernard coming back what they had. But, man, McClintic has been unbelievable so far. I think this is his second 30-point game of the season. If not, I know the other game was really close to it as well.
Yeah, what happens a lot of times when you get to really special teams, you get the sacrifice. And you start thinking about the we instead of the me. Well, these kids grow up and they're capable of scoring. They're capable of posting numbers that are far more than they are, but they're accepting their role for the betterment of the team. And then all of a sudden, when their turn comes, all of a sudden you watch someone go out and score 30. Well, then you watch them do it again, and you're like, man, that kid can really play. You know what I mean? But that's what makes teams so special, is when you have some of that talent level that's willing to back off a little bit and be a part of something bigger than themselves. That's when it's really cool.
Yeah, and it's just that's what's made them really fun to watch. We'll actually get to see South Webster in person on Friday night down on the west side. So that'll be one of our streaming games of next week as well.
Looking forward to it.
Really looking forward to seeing them in person. Another one from the SOC 3, Kage Alexander from Waverly had a huge weekend. 26 points in their loss at Wheelersburg, just really kept them in that game. And, they were dealing with a couple of injuries, especially in the backcourt. I know Cassie's out right now, Hurt's out for the season, so they're dealing with a lot. But Alexander then backs it up on Saturday over at the Alley with 25 in a win over Meggs. Just an outstanding weekend for Kage Alexander.
Well, and against two really quality opponents. So, obviously the young man can really score. He can get a shot whenever he wants it. Really kind of old school in the mid-range in a lot of ways. Excellent at the free throw line, excellent range. So, against two really quality opponents. Waverly's a team that continues to just be intriguing. You kind of keep your eye on them. They kind of gained a little bit of the experience a year ago, and here they are. The one thing you say about them, John, is they're not really afraid of these big game type atmospheres. They've been able to go toe to toe with some really good teams.
Yeah, they've gone out, challenged themselves. And, I still think they're probably going to end up just a little bit over 500 because of that schedule and whatnot. But they're going to be a team no one's going to want to see in the postseason because you're going to have a really experienced sophomore guard, and then you've got the Biggs and the Myers inside. Russell's back from injury as well. Then when Cassie comes back, they're going to be a pretty dangerous team. Not having Hurt will – no pun intended, hurt.
No doubt about it.
Because, he does such a good job of stretching the floor. That's what's going to make their game this week. I believe they've got West this week before, where West plays that really good zone. That's going to be really interesting to see how they score against that zone with one less shooter out there, and maybe two less shooters if Cassie's not back, because, they're going to be able to really focus on what Alexander and Russell can do from the outside. So it's going to make them maybe have to trust the Myers a little bit more inside. And, man, those two big bodies that can be really physical, and they're starting to grow their offensive game as well.
Well, and against the against the different types of defenses too. You just wonder about tempo, and you wonder like if possessions aren't started to be limited and so forth, and that can kind of bring the score down a little bit as well.
Yeah, so keep an eye out on Waverly this week. We'll talk about that in some of our games to watch for this week. But one of the better games of last week was a triple overtime game featuring one of those big body teams with Northwest. You had Northwest actually dropping a triple overtime game to Whiteoak, 71-67. Triple overtime, just one of those games where it's just a heartbreaker to lose, but at the same time, it's almost like, okay, it's over. Like, it's just like sometimes, especially like as a coach, you're like, man, that was a lot. That was a lot to deal with. You know, we dealt with a lot of adversity throughout the game, and sometimes it's just better to get over and reset from it. But in that game, for the Wildcats, Brady Brandenburg and Christopher Wessner each had 21 points for the Wildcats. And really, two of the big standouts for them throughout the year have been Sawyer Blair and Lucas Pollard as well. So they've shown four different guys that can really score the ball. This Whiteoak team, now 4-4, has a lot of positives to look at.
Yeah, they're a dangerous 500 group because they've lost to some really good basketball teams. Eastern, Peebles, Fayetteville, where I've top of my head 3 of their 4 losses, I think. So, I mean, you're talking about a team that as you said, they have 3-4 different guys that can really play on the offensive end. Northwest fighting at the 500 level as well. I think maybe 1 or 2 games clear of it. But, you know, they have beaten a lot of the teams maybe, quote unquote, they should have. They've lost to some good teams too. So this could be one of those swing games. You know, I mean, when both teams are kind of fighting at that 500 mark, you end up getting one of these. Maybe it's a momentum to go and get another one you're not supposed to. On the other side, as I said before, not a big deal to lose one of these as long as it doesn't end up being worth 2 or 3 losses, if that makes sense, right? You've got to be able to look at it, learn from it, but then move on. Don't let this game impact the next several games.
And then as the winning team, you do want it to impact.
That's it.
Yeah. Yep. So a great win for Whiteoak. Tough loss for Northwest, but I wouldn't hang your heads too much if you're Northwest. They're going to have a lot of success in that SOC too. So let's move over. We're kind of all over the place on where we're going. Let's go to a few smaller schools real quick, or a couple smaller schools.
Sure.
Let's go to Racine. Southern. Jeff Caldwell, their head coach, notches his 218th win at Southern on Saturday at the Spartan Classic at Alexander to become the Tornadoes' all-time winningest coach, which, if you know anything about Southeast District basketball, that says a lot.
No, it really does. And, you know, I've known Coach Caldwell a long time in terms of competing against him and so forth. And just, you know, just an outstanding person, first of all. Outstanding basketball coach, and just does a terrific job. And you're right, when you start talking, they love their basketball down there at Southern, and you're going all the way back into I know throughout the 80s they had some really good tradition and so forth. So you're correct when you start talking about and man, I can't wait to see them in person. I've been following their scores and so forth, but I've been told that from an offensive talent perspective, with what they've had added to their team, that they're really good. So I know we have them later in the year. I can't wait to get to know them a little bit more and then see them in person.
Yeah, Branniger and Chandler are two of the top players in that TVC hockey, and Branniger, one of the top players just in the coverage area as a whole in general. So congratulations to Coach Caldwell on that achievement. So we'll stay in the smaller division as well with Greet. Had a couple of nice wins this week with a couple of really big impact plays. If you want to start talking about one of the coaches we talked about on the Coaches Call-In show, one of the relations on that.
Yeah, Knapp with 29 there and a win over Clay. And, you know, the one thing we'll kind of repeat throughout some segments of the show, the SOC schedule sets up with a lot of non-conference opportunity early in the year, and then they start to gear up into league play. So a lot of these league standings are only 1, maybe 2 games in. But I know, Green with the win over Clay. Notre Dame, I think, is 2-0 on the boys' side. Green now 1-0. But obviously, when you have a kid like that can score it, you feel like you go into games every night with a chance to be real competitive.
Yeah, and then, you know, they had a big win over Western a couple of days before that with Gabe Blevins scoring 29 for them as well. So,
there you go.
If you've got the 2 scorers, that's going to make things a lot more interesting. They have New Boston coming up on Tuesday, and then you've got Notre Dame coming up. And then, of course, and then you got to go to the Eagles' Nest for a super easy one with Eastern Pike. So, pretty tough week coming up for Green, but they moved to 4-4, and a couple of big performances for them as well.
Yeah, no question.
But let's kind of jump around as well. We'll go back to the Spartan Classic, a really good game. Brock had updates from that one. Colgrove, a 48-47 win over the host, Alexander, in that one. That was a game it felt like Alexander was up throughout. 14-point lead at the end of the first. Colgrove does a great job of chipping away and coming back.
Yeah, following the updates throughout, Alexander with a great start. And you go out. I know the Cooper kid from Alexander is really good. I think he had a big night in that one.
21 for him.
Yeah, he's really good. If you haven't had a chance to see him play yet, he does a nice job. You know, John, this is first of all credit to Colgrove for coming back. On the Alexander side, I still think there's something to be said in terms of you get out in front. Okay, we're winning at halftime. We're winning at the end of the third quarter. We're winning halfway through the fourth quarter. And I said it earlier, you start wishing the time. I'm not saying this is what happened.
Right.
I'm just saying it's part of the learning. You know, you start to wish the clock away. You're like, okay, here we go. Okay, we're almost where the teams that are used to winning, they look at it as like, okay, here it goes, winning time. Let's bury him.
Yeah.
And you go on to win a game like that by 7, 8, 9, 10
Right.
points where, Alexander maybe still trying to learn how to finish. And to Colgrove's credit, they stayed with it. They chipped away. They got themselves back into a spot to steal it, and they were able to do that on the road.
Yeah, so I think it was 12 to 15 seconds left. Alexander up by 1, gets fouled, misses both free throws, and then Colgrove's Ryland Smith goes down and scores with 8 seconds left to take the lead, and they hold on. He finished with 12 points on the night. Braden Kleiber had 16, Caden Turner with 13 for the Hornets in that win. So a big road win for them. And then, as you said, just kind of for Alexander still learning how to win. But when your best player is a sophomore, like a Jace Cooper who had 21 points in the game, you can deal with a lot of those growing pains because a lot of positives are going to eventually come.
Yeah, just stay the course. You're obviously doing some things right with some of the teams you have beaten this year. You obviously did a lot right in this one for about 3.5 quarters. You just got to find a way to finish.
Mm-hmm. And then moving on to another one that was maybe a little, surprising if you watched a lot of the game, was McClain 49 and Blanchester 48. Third straight win for McClain. We'll get into that in a second. But, man, this was a game that felt like McClain was in control throughout. But as Jordan Bell said in our post-game interview, it was just kind of like, it's nice to get back to a winning culture. And part of that winning culture is winning games that you don't particularly play well in and then not closing games out down the stretch. But a really nice win for McClain because you've kind of given away the lead. It comes down to, you have a minute of where you're just playing defense constantly and just never gave Blanchester a look at the basket.
You used the word in the McClain-Zane Trace game here a week or two ago on the show, upset. And we were talking about wasn't an upset, so forth, whatever. Yeah. And again, McClain is a team where this can happen if you've dealt with high school kids before. You're playing kind of in an underdog role and you start to win and you start to win and you start to win. Now all of a sudden you come up on a game where most people probably going into that game thought McClain was supposed to win the game. Is that fair?
Yes.
So now all of a sudden, can you wear the bullseye? Can you take that expectation and win? So part of putting together winning seasons, especially when you haven't done it for in a while, is learning how, as you said, to win different types of games with different types of expectations. It's one thing to go in as an underdog and play loose and carefree. It's another thing going in the pressure of here comes Blanchester putting the pressure on us late in the game. Like, oh no, we're supposed to win the game, and dealing with that, and then finding a way to be successful. That's a big step for McClain.
Yes, it's a big step in a big way for them. And then one of the things that really stood out was it gets to, there's a 1-point game, and then it gets down to they add one to it, so it's a 2-point game. They get one more stop with 5 seconds left, and Blanchester has, I think, 3 fouls to give, so they got to foul 4 times in 5 seconds. Well, they foul once with 4 seconds left. Well, and then the well-coached team, hey, we can foul without time going off. So they just start doing the holding, which I was like, at first, that's really smart. Then I was like, man, I kind of hate that. That should be an intentional foul. But it is the new rule change. You can do the hold before. But they're intentionally holding Elijah Storer, who's the big guy or big man for McClain. They obviously looked at it as, he's who we want to foul. So they foul him 3 straight times. The junior steps to the line, absolutely nothing but net on both free throws. And it was like, it's really cool to see for that kid because, you know, it's maybe the first time he's had to really step up in a way like that, and steps up, nails both free throws, gives them a 4-point lead, and then Blanchester hit a 3 at the buzzer. But really good win for McClain. Love what Hudson Lovett's been able to do for them. Only a sophomore. He was the game MVP for them. But then Jordan Bell also, you know, knocked down a couple of shots early. He does a good job of kind of getting them into their stuff. And that's a team that, you know, their non-conference is really tough, but it is nice to see.
The league's not easy.
Well, that's what I was gonna kind of get into. Was like you're already dealing with a really tough league, but they beat a good Zane Trace team by 4 right before Christmas. They beat a good Adena team right before New Year's by 2, and then they win this game by 1 with Blanchester.
Come from way behind in the Adena game too. So you're right. I like how they're mixing some young and some old, and things are coming together well there for the Tigers. Yeah.
So keep an eye out on McClain. I think wins are going to start adding up, maybe in the future, but also throughout this year, you're going to see some more wins. They're probably going to knock off a couple more teams that you maybe don't expect them to do, as they have recently as well. So good win for them. And then maybe what I think was probably the game of the day over there at the Chad Hodson Classic was Eastern Pike 54, Lynchburg-Clay 52. This was a wild game. It was 8-0 to start for Eastern Pike, and then it was 22-11. Lynchburg was winning. At the half, it was 26-26. Like, just a huge game of runs. Eastern takes a little bit of a lead after 3, and then Lynchburg chips away. Eventually, it's 45-43. Eastern's up, and Lynchburg kind of takes over a 9-0 run to go up 52-45. Eastern scores and then really starts to put the pressure on defensively. Lynchburg never got to the free throw line. They could not handle the ball, kept turning the ball over. Eventually, Boston Webb scores on a block for a 3-point play with around 20 seconds left, makes the free throw to tie the game. Then he gets a steal, gets fouled on a loose ball, steps to the line, makes both free throws with 4.1 seconds left. Just a really good high school basketball game. Maybe not the prettiest at times, but man, those two teams, big, physical, athletic teams. It was a really fun matchup was Eric Manley. Seeing him on the basketball court, man, that kid is like, just imagine seeing him as a quarterback. Huge. He had a nice game for them as well. He blocked 4 or 5 shots. Denver Clinton for Lynchburg is somebody that we're going to talk about next week. We'll talk about in a big way because he's coming up on a big accomplishment for him. But he had 20 points in the game, 14 of which came in the fourth quarter. Just really stepped up big for them.
Yeah, Lynchburg is a team that's been fascinating. They've played so many tight games, maybe not necessarily by final score, but games where maybe they were in the lead and then they weren't in the lead, or they've come from behind, or like what I just said about McClain. They've taken some teams that have been really, really good, that maybe they're the underdog role and they've played really well. And then there's been some other nights where they've lost some really close games. So man, they've just been knocking on the door. But give Eastern a lot of credit. I know it's been a tough start for them as well. That's the type of win that could give them a lot of confidence as they start to really dive into league play here.
100%. So also in that game, Tanner Roberts had 6 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 blocks for Lynchburg-Clay. I thought with him and Manley, what I really enjoyed was the fact that they probably combined to block 9 or 10 shots. They weren't swatting at them. They're just going up and contesting and then just, knocking it away in like the kind of old school blocks instead of taking the big swings, which are going to lead to fouls. And, Roberts only ends up with 2 fouls in the game. And it's just, one of those things where because he's so controlled with his body, doesn't get into a lot of foul trouble, and that's what's going to make him really dangerous throughout. So also in that game, Elam Faust had 12 for Lynchburg. I think that's a team that's going to win some games as well.
I think so.
Yeah.
I just think they've been knocking on the door. That they become a really dangerous team later in the year because they're playing a lot of close games. I know this one didn't go their way. Just a team to keep an eye on.
Yeah, they've had 5 of their 9 games have been within 10 points, and a lot of those have been really tightly contested throughout. So tough loss for Lynchburg, really good win for Eastern Pike as they're going to bounce into league play coming up. So, some of our games of the week coming up, these are going to be actually all games that we are going to be streaming as well. So keep an eye out. We're going to have 4 streaming games this week, upping from our normal 3. Kind of a special week for us this week. We were able to get down to a big one on Tuesday, but we'll get into that in a minute. But starting on Monday, Fairland at Chesapeake, 5-2 Fairland at 7-1 Chesapeake. Both of these teams score in the mid to high 60s. This one has the chance to be a really fun game.
Yeah, all kinds of offense on both sides. We highlighted Fairland with multiple kids throughout our standout performances, it seems, all year. This week in my notes, I know Laco was back in my notes with 29 there in a recent game. And so you have a couple guys that go for 30 on any given night with a couple other guys that could go and hit 4 or 5 threes on any given night. So just all kinds of offensive talent. And then we know on the Chesapeake side, what they offer. So yeah, I think this could be really, really high level basketball, and one that I guess you say Chesapeake needs to hold serve at home, but let's face it. I mean, the head to head becomes really, really important because you just don't know how many other teams can get these two.
Yeah, this was our best live stream regular season game of the season last year. Probably was our best overall game that we did of the season. These two really competed at a high level last year, and now especially with Ironton beating both of them.
Yes.
This is a big time game for that OVC title because the Ironton team it's going to be a tough one to beat.
Well, and that's what I was alluding to too.
Yeah.
You just don't know as deep as I think the OVC has some teams that aren't bad. We've had a couple on stream already. I just don't know how many head to head will get them outside of these top 2, and then you throw Ironton in that mix. So the head to head battles become really, really important.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So this one should be really fun. You mentioned Laco. Cliff Franson's also been over 30 points on the year. Jared Love was one of the players that we saw him knock down 5 threes. Max Goo can really play as well. I mean, they've got some different guys. They're figuring out some things. I think the Thomas family has done an outstanding job of coaching and leading that team so far in their first season at the helm. Anytime you're replacing like a Coach Speed, you have to do it, either you're doing it the exact same way or you got to put your own spin on it. They put their own spin on it. And, I think they've used a lot of the Coach Speed stuff as well, and that's what's made them off to this 5-2 start. A nice start for Fairland. Coach Ader has done a great job with Chesapeake. Reached the Elite 8 last season, and this season off to a 7-1 start with their only loss being that game against Ironton. So
pay attention to tempo in this too, because I think Chesapeake has the ball handling and the basketball IQ to understand the tempo they need to play. And that's something Fairland's going to have to really guard against. The shot selection needs to be quality because they may not get as many possessions as they're used to getting.
Right, yeah, and that's what's going to make things a little more difficult because of how Chesapeake will guard in this game. So Maddox Kazee, Caden Perkins, Carson Freck had a really big game against Ross County Christian Academy, and then Philip Thacker as well. Also, one of our standout performances, I didn't even mention this, was in Adena.
Joey Francis.
Yeah, Joey Francis had a triple-double.
Yeah, I saw that.
Ross County Christian. So just an outstanding performance by him as well. So, this is this game I think has a chance to be one of the best that we're going to have all year and maybe one of the more fun. Me and Carson are going to have that call on Monday night. Shayne doing the smart thing of using the job as an excuse to not drive the 2 hours.
I'm back to the grind here, but boy,
mine starts Tuesday. So.
I can promise you when I sit down with dinner tomorrow night, I'll have you guys tuned in.
Yeah, it should be a really fun game, and they've treated us very well down at Chesapeake as well. And I mean, everyone does. I mean, we haven't had in the last couple of years, and the one that didn't. It's no longer in the person who didn't is no longer in the area, so they're at a different school now. So that's too bad. But Tuesday night we will be down for some Shaction. A couple of 8-0s. 8-0 Eastern Brown at 8-0 Peebles. Man, this one's going to be really fun. And if you didn't see the interview, Paxton Reed of Peebles had just a great quote at the end of that. I was like, you got 8-0 Eastern Brown coming up, and you guys are 8-0 because I don't care what our record is. Like, we don't care. It's like, we're just going to go play. Like, we don't care what the opponent's record is because that way we can just focus on the opponent. We don't worry about who they've beat, who they haven't beat. We don't worry about who we've beat, who we haven't beat. We just go play. That's Peebles basketball. And that was just like, to me, it was like, man, it's a really good way of looking at it because then you're not overlooking people. That way they don't overlook an Athens team, a really athletic team that they had to beat on Friday night to get ready for Eastern. They just go focus on Athens, and because of that, they come away with a 12-point win.
Well, it's just mature leadership, which seems to be a characteristic you find at the top of a roster of an 8-0 team, right? So when you have a couple 8-0 teams, you know where I'm going to jump here. I'm going to jump point guard play, okay? Because again, it's so fun on both sides. Both of these teams have a long list of guys. Matthew Dick, Jason Pinkerton, Braxton Vance, Carter Cluxon, I think are all up around 9.5 or more points. And then over on the Peebles side, Bo Johnson, Josh McClary, Paxton Ryan, Keegan Pike, I mean, all up in double figures. But what's at the foundation on both sides? Great playmaking, great point guard play. As I look through the Shack website, I see Connor Gross there. Peebles leading the Shack at 6.1 assists. So in your dishing the ball, it's got a low turnover rate. I've highlighted multiple times on the show that Kane Dotson and Chase Pinkerton, they both average 3.5 assists, and they do it at a very low turnover rate. So when you're that efficient, think about it. It's common sense math. When you're playing with that type of offensive talent, if you don't turn the ball over and you get a quality shot at the basket, well, someone who averages like 10 a game at the varsity level's taking it, there's a good chance it's going in.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So it just becomes really, really hard to guard. But again, I think one of the best ways to go about containing, sometimes we think of face guarding this kid or fronting this kid or what. Sometimes it's getting really good ball pressure and trying to get the point guard out of rhythm to make it harder for that point guard to get them into their stuff.
100%. So this will be just really fun because I really liked what Connor Gross was able to do distributing the ball in that. He could shoot it a little bit from the outside as well. You mentioned the guards, Pinkerton and Dotson for Eastern Brown, and I do think Matthew Dick has been a big problem so far for opponents against Eastern Brown. He's averaging 14.6, but man, Keegan Puckett now over 10 points a game. He had 21 in that game against Athens. Athens has a good senior big as well, and Zachariah Mullins, and it didn't matter. Puckett just went through and was just nice and relaxed, can score at multiple levels as well. He knocked down a couple mid-range, scored on the post, but he also stepped outside and hit a three as well. So, I mean, that's a freshman that's going to score a whole lot of points for this Peebles team, but they've got a lot of experience as well. So Gross as a junior, Josh McClary as a junior, but you mentioned Paxton Ryan. Colson Sims, I thought played really well defensively. It felt like when he came into the game against Athens that just everything changed. Like just the whole tempo of the game changed because he's just going to go guard you 90, 94 feet, however long the court's going to be that day. He's going to guard you. And, Paxton Ryan mentioned after, he's like, he's got 5 fouls, he's going to give them. And and that wears you out as a guard.
It does.
It just really can really wear you out as a guard, and that can really shake things up. Now, Bo Johnson missed that game with an ankle injury.
I saw that.
That's why one of the reasons he went from 17.4 a game to 15.3 was he got hurt during the East Clinton game. Didn't play. He did warm up a little bit, so he may be back on Tuesday. If he's not back, that's a big loss because Eastern can do so many different things, and if Peebles can really stretch you out, having that extra player that can really score it makes them even more dangerous. Two really well-coached teams as well, Coach Airy and Coach Buechler, two of my favorites. Really looking forward to watching this one.
Yeah, no quite. That Monday, Tuesday on SOSA is really, you need to set the calendar and make sure that you're getting a chance to see those two, because those two games are going to be really good.
Yeah, should be a couple of really fun matchups for well. And then we got a pretty decent one in the probably the best league in this year, the SOC 3, South Webster at West, a pair of one-loss teams. Should be a really fun matchup on the West side on Friday night.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, these two teams have jumped out, maybe quietly went under the radar because of all the different types of good teams that we have in some of the non-conference matchups. Too, the SOC, as I mentioned, their schedule a little slow to start, so maybe that's got a little bit to do with it. But I really think over the next couple weeks that the SOC is going to take some center stage in some of these matchups, and this is kind of one of those games early in the process that become really, really important for West playing on the home court.
Yeah, they've got to protect the home court. They're at home a good bit to start this half. I mean, you had the big win over Valley, 39-35 the other day, but then this is a big one on Friday. They are at Minford on Tuesday, but you've got South Webster coming in, and then you go on the road a little bit after that. But it's going to be a nice little run of games for them. With that Minford team, you can't sleep on them. They're only 2-8, but man, they are competing really hard. They competed hard with that South Webster team as well. Only lost by 10 in that one, and it's going to be at Minford. So can't sleep on that. Cannot look ahead at all for this game on Friday. But with Will Kegley, Logan McIntyre, Braden Adkins, Christian Carrasco, they've got some really nice pieces. But man, Will Kegley, one of the better scorers all around in the SOC3.
Yeah, no question about it. And we've talked about it before. You get into these league matchups, teams know each other really well. It makes we started the show with it tonight. Makes scoring in the half court that much more difficult. So it's going to be physical. It's going to be high level intensity and. Again, look forward to calling it. I mean, as we start to go through this, I realize just how good a week we have on SOSA this week.
It's going to be an outstanding week for sure. And then, just looking, Brycin McClintic averaging 20.5 points a game. Hunter Bernard, who we really looked at coming in, and then, he's been so solid for the last 2 seasons, and then now he's just solid again. 14.5 points a game. He's passed out 2.5 assists. McClintic 3 assists a game. Easton Large, a freshman, is averaging 10.5 points a game, 8 rebounds for them. Yeah. That could be a big difference maker in this. It does, does West have someone with the physical size to deal with Large? Now they have the length, but if South Webster can get the ball inside the Large, do they have someone that can really counteract that with something other than length? Because the footwork, what I've seen from Large so far, just on film, he's got great footwork as well. Yeah,
well, and you start that in. What happens too as a young player, you get a chance to come in and play with some proven varsity guys. It's just a real nice fit. So again, that's just going to make them that much deeper as the year goes on.
Yeah, then you got kids like a Braden Bernard, Cole Bennett that can really impact the game as well for South Webster, and Coach McClain is one of the younger coaches with West, but he's done a really good job with West because West basketball is something that was kind of an afterthought for a long time, and now they're front and center as one of the better teams in the SOC3, and then obviously Coach Pearson is one of the best to ever do it in the state of Ohio. So this should be a really fun matchup with the sidelines as well. Really looking forward to getting down on the west side. I think you and Carson have this one on Friday. Should be a fun matchup for sure.
Yeah, no question.
One of the many standout games for this week, as you said, this is an outstanding week this week for SOSA and just overall in the area. We've got some really good games to watch in the area. We'll start on Monday. Just kind of go through a quick rundown. If you don't have anywhere to go, or you're watching us and you're going to watch us and you're like, hey, I kind of want to go to a game as well, here are some options for you on those nights. So Monday night, you got in the OVC Gaia Academy at Portsmouth. Portsmouth giving up a lot of points, but they've got a lot of really good young talent. And then when you speak of young talent, man, Gaia Academy's got some really, really talented young kids led by point guard Tyree.
Yeah, I was real impressed with them. I remember when we had them, I was saying I was really anxious to watch them in the weeks to come and just see the improvements they were going to make. And again, another test here. You talk about really good conferences. That's one of them with a lot of good basketball teams. So it's going to be some tough times and growth for that Guy Academy team, but certainly one that I think is going to come out on the other end of it just fine if they stay the course.
Yes, 100% agree with that. So Tuesday, well, Monday, obviously watch our Fairland at Chesapeake. Yeah. So, but Tuesday, this is one of the. I mean, I've got at least one game listed for every day of the week this week as well. So if you are a basketball junkie, you have places to go, and not only when you watch us as well. So Tuesday in the SVC, Huntington at St. Trace. We talked about that Huntington team. St. Trace coming off a couple of losses, really dominated Amanda Clear Creek to get back onto the winning side. But this is a big time game in the SVC.
Yeah, well, no question. This is a game for Huntington. I think as you continue to try to push to that to show that you belong in that top half, and then it's a little bit of a danger game for Zane Trace. You're coming off, and Huntington comes off a big holiday win where they come from behind, as we talked about, being down 29-12. So if you're Zane Trace, can you come in on your home court and really set a tempo and really guard at a high level? And then kind of get your offense going a little bit. That's something that we talked about. It's hard to separate from teams when you don't score a lot. Well, again, expect it to be a game that I feel like Zane Trace is probably the better team going in. But if Huntington guards at a high level and Zane Trace can't score, you're going to find yourself into the third or fourth quarter in a low enough scoring game to where it's going to be a dogfight. So I guess that's one that I'm really, really intrigued by. As we get ready to make the turn, right? What do they have? One more, is this it?
Yep.
And then they'll flip in the SVC and start round 2.
Yeah, and that's some of the schools haven't caught up on their, because I know Westfont Zane Trace has to make
because
up.
you got your makeup.
Yeah,
You're right.
You got a couple makeups in there as well. So, and then we'll jump over a non-league game, Logan Elm at Miami Trace. I just think this is one of those. It's not necessarily a must-win for Miami Trace, but it's a big one for Miami Trace to get, because you got to get a little bit of confidence back going into league play.
You do, and we might have buried the lead a little bit with the Washington Courthouse team and what they're kind of being real sneaky in terms of the year they're off to the start they're off to. But you're right. I mean, obviously Miami Trace, their league's still in front of them. Miami Trace is battle tested enough. No matter what seed they come out in the postseason, I don't think anybody be thrilled to have them in their bracket. You know what I mean? So again, but I understand what you're saying from the standpoint of you just need to find yourself a little bit. And when you play a tough schedule, losing can happen, and losing multiple times can happen, and then that's what they've had right now. When you look at a rivalry like a Courthouse, you throw in a Circleville, you throw in a Logan Elm, and it's just that's kind of what you're dealing with.
Yeah, you mentioned Courthouse. We're going to have Coach Bartriff on the Coaches Call-In show on Sunday night to talk about their 7-3 start. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was something that, when we have that holiday break, even though it's not that long, it's just kind of something that when I was making my notes, just kind of left out of that really big win for Courthouse. Or for Washington in that one. So
well, and you'll have it on the Friday list, but I mean, to just peek ahead there a little bit. Chillicothe at Courthouse.
Yes,
huge game,
big time game as well. Now we jump back into the SOC 3. Wheelersburg at Valley on Tuesday. Valley's got a must win for them, and that you got to protect the home court. You're playing against a 4-0 team, but you got to, if you want to win that SOC 3, it's going to be tough to do so after starting off 0-2.
Yeah, it is, and that's what I was going to ask you. With the depth in that conference, you can probably get away with losing a time or two, but certainly 3 this early would be a bit much. At some point, you're going to have to make a statement and do that. I would agree with you in terms of Valley, if they're wanting to keep their name in that race.
Yeah, they've got some outstanding players in Copen and multiple others as well. You've got some great athletes there for Valley. That one should be a fun matchup. Then Waverly at South Webster on Tuesday. South Webster cannot look ahead to West, because you've got Kage Alexander and the Tigers coming in to Jeepville? Jeep Canteen? I don't know what like the beep Jeep. I don't know I don't know if it's a mythological creature, like it's from Popeye. So I don't know, does it have a den? Does it have a house?
I would say you're more worried about the really good basketball team and the good coach that you're facing. But I mean, you bring up an interesting point.
I'm trying to come up with the different ways to sell it, because
do we call it the Darcy Dome?
Yes, I think he did in volleyball. So I mean that's probably better. Yeah, you could name it after the Claxons and everybody else that always wins out of that group. Because man, South Webster is. This year they're celebrating the 20 year of their state championship team in 2006, and oh my goodness, that team was unbelievable. You had 2 kids that went on to start as true freshmen in college, which now you could probably get away with, because everybody else left for NIL deals that year. But Wagger and Aldridge, I mean, just amongst those players for South Webster, it's great to see that they're celebrating that group. And this, they made a really cool video as well. They had a really nice.
They did.
Yeah,
that was really neat.
Yeah. So the SOC has some really talented people outside of just really good athletes as well. So going back to this game, Waverly at South Webster, this one should be a really fun one.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, what the league offers you when you start getting a league of depth is every game is kind of a marquee matchup, right? A lot of times if you're top heavy and every couple, when those two get together, it's incredible. But what happens is when you get a league like this year's SOC, you're like, well, that's a great game. Well, that's a great game. Man, that's also a great game. And you're going to get that just about every night out. So even when a team does eliminate themselves mathematically, like you use Valley, for example, no matter what happens to Valley this upcoming game, they're going to be a team at some point this season is going to impact who does win it. So even if let's say they fall off the trail for the conference title, as well as I do, they're going to get somebody,
right?
So they're going to impact who goes on to win this thing. I really believe that.
Yes, 100% agree with that as well. So let's jump over to a couple games in the Shack. Fayetteville at North Adams. Fayetteville having a nice start to their season. North Adams coming off a nice win over Southeastern on Saturday night.
Yeah, I watched Southeastern get a nice road win at Piketon the other night. That was a really a good game for Southeastern. Southeastern starting to play better, won 3 of 4. They beat a Piketon team that had won 5 in a row. And then that very next night, as you say, North Adams gets them. So, North Adams, when playing at home too. Yeah, it's just but that Fayetteville team, I've had a chance to see them on film a couple of times, and then that's an interesting matchup. I think anytime you go on the road in that conference, you're going to run into a really, really cool atmosphere because you and I have talked about our love for their atmospheres throughout that conference.
Yep, completely agree with that. And then staying in the Shack, you got Lynchburg-Clay at Whiteoak. Teams kind of going slightly in opposite directions, but I think this Lynchburg team at any point is going to be able to turn it around because they've got some really talented players. Denver Clinton coming up on a big milestone coming up. He'll go through that on Tuesday night, but this Whiteoak team can really score the basketball as well.
Yeah, they can. We mentioned earlier, Whiteoak right at that 4-4 mark. The season can go either way. They've lost to some really good teams. We've also highlighted earlier Lynchburg-Clay. The one thing you can assume going into this is they're going to compete. They're going to be right there. And again, if Lynchburg can start to find a way to win some of these games, get control of them in the fourth quarter, and go on to finish some of them, I think the confidence can go a little bit, but I've been impressed with their ability to stick their nose in against some pretty good basketball teams.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. So, and then let's jump to the TVC Ohio. You've got Athens at Nelsonville York. This one might have some bad blood in it because you had an in-season transfer from Athens to Nelsonville York. Nelsonville just pushed Warren. They've had some weird results on this year, but they really pushed Warren on Saturday. So I'm interested in this game.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask you. I have not seen Nelsonville in person. Their scores, they may be the number one team in our coverage area that's got me Buffalo. I see the names, so I know the level of athlete we're talking about. I believe in their coach, really well coached. I've known him a long time. Just kind of a confusing group right now. But again, it's there. And then the same way with Athens, I know you told me the other night you walked away impressed with their eye test, their athleticism.
Well, and they're fairly young too, because I mean they had a Colin Chapman that had nearly 20 for him in that game against Peebles, only a sophomore. We saw him at Nelsonville last year, hit a game winner late in that one. He's going to be a stud. Jackson Warner was 1 rebound from a double-double, only a sophomore for them. Yeah. Zachary Mullins is a senior. He had some foul trouble, but I thought he played pretty well. And then they had a freshman, Luke Roby. Keep an eye on that name. Wasn't on the roster that was turned in. Comes in with a JV uniform on. Comes in early in the game. Goes like 3 for 4 from 3. Ran the point for him a little bit. I think it was like hey, this kid's eventually going to be up with us. And then it was like, okay, we need him. And like, man, he's an undersized point guard right now, but keep an eye on that name, Luke Roby, for the long haul for Athens, because I think he's got a chance to be a really fun one for them. These are two teams that are both under 500 right now. Now, Alec Thompson, I didn't see his name scoring for them, for Nelsonville in that Warren game. So I don't know if he may have been out for that, but they're only 4-5 right now. But man, with Thompson and Sullivan, Wheatley as well, Bean Martin, they've got some different kids that can really score. Champ Schultz, one of the better names in our area, Champ. They've got some nice pieces. At some point, things are going to turn around for Nelsonville, and it could start with a big one there on Tuesday night. So then we'll jump on Wednesday, a really big one in the MSL Buckeye. Fairfield Union at Hamilton Township. Hamilton Township down one of their big studs, but man, they've still got some really nice pieces.
Yeah, they do. You and I were just talking about Fairfield Union from last year to this year, just in the car on the way home the other night from a stream game, and obviously they have some length and some athleticism. I've heard mid-state league coaches talk on the call-in show about their athleticism, and then obviously Hamilton Township, I think, is a team that kind of was looked at as one of the teams to beat in there. So again, that the head-to-head opportunity. Fairfield Union looking for maybe kind of a statement win. This would be a great opportunity to Hamilton Township playing on the home court would be tough to get.
Yeah, Lucas King, a lot of people at different places in the Southeast know that name. Was at Adena. I think he originally came from Miami Trace, played at Adena 2 years ago, then went on to play quarterback. It was a really good quarterback at Hamilton Township the last couple of years. 17.2 points, 8.3 rebounds a game. Has some really good length. Lefty that can step outside and shoot it for Hamilton Township as well. Asa Klein, one of the really big standouts for Fairfield Union, who's still a fairly young team as well. I think this game will have a lot to do with who wins that MSL Buckeye, as that league has a bunch of people with, 1 to 2 league losses. Everyone's at least got one. This is a big one in MSL Buckeye play.
Yeah, you mentioned the one. You can probably still have a chance at 2. 3 is going to start to stretch a little bit. So it becomes these head-to-heads become really important.
Then one that should be fun on Thursday, Ironton at Portsmouth. This is a Portsmouth team that we've said a couple of different times. They've been struggling defensively. Offensively, they've been fun, and this Ironton team can really get out and score some points.
Well, we talked about the OVC. When you start looking at teams in the 4, 5, 6 hole, when you start talking about teams like maybe a Portsmouth or a South Point or a Guy Academy or whoever. I don't have standings in front of me, but that conference is deep. That conference has some really good basketball in it, and so Portsmouth playing at home, you feel like at some point they could get someone this year. So if you're Ironton, you want to make sure that you don't overlook anyone there and go in and take care of business.
Yeah, 100% agree. So on Friday, going to the SVC, Huntington at Adena. We had that game on live stream the first time. Adena with a double-digit win over there. May have been 9 points, but either way, it was an 8 to 12 point game pretty much throughout. Joey Francis was outstanding in that game. Once again, Joey Francis had triple-double on Saturday night. I think it was 12 points, 10 rebounds, 12 assists. So, I mean, it wasn't like he just barely got there on the assists. And it seems like, Garrison's playing a lot better for them, starting to score the ball as well. Then you have a Gavin Harold that can really score the ball. This is going to be a tough matchup for Huntington. But, man, anytime you got a Frankie Hirsch, Calvin Manson, Brendan Smith does a great job of running the point. This is going to be a fun game.
It was a tough matchup from Huntington, and I didn't realize it at the time until I've gone on to watch both teams play a little bit more, because I think one of Huntington's top qualities is their versatility. I heard you mention that with Coach Jurg on the call-in show. And if you think about it, Adena, no one presents more of a versatility at the forward position than Garrison and Harold. You know what I mean? So, I think it all sets some of that for Huntington. And I think, Francis gets into some good athletic matchups. So that's where Huntington's going to have to be really, really good on the glass the way they were in the Vinton County game, and trying to do some things to offset that versatility.
Yep, completely agree with that. So then also in the SVC, this game, they played this past weekend over at Piketon. Southeastern had a 1-point win over Piketon, which really broke up a really long string of winning for Piketon. Now 7-5, Southeastern 3-7. but a 1-point win for Southeastern over Piketon. Now they will play at Southeastern also on Friday night.
Yeah, Bo Henry had 22 in that game the other night and was really good. I was impressed, John, in Southeastern's win. Thought the difference was how many different Panthers were able to get involved in the scoring. Strasball hit some big shots, had some big free throws late. He was in double figures. But, Wireman, Burns, Cheadle, Oates, Brown took a couple charges in that game. Did a real nice job. All the lefty, the young kid, Whittington, a nice player. So I still might be missing someone because they can run about 8 deep at you, and they all give Coach Alley something. So when they take care of the ball, that's where they almost got themselves in trouble the other night. That should have been more than a 1-point win. They couldn't take care of the basketball down the stretch. Give Python a lot of credit for storming back into it, but no, it is unique in the SVC schedule to turn around and play that quick again. So that'll be an interesting matchup standpoint from a scouting report when those two games are only going to be about a week apart.
Right, it'll be a really interesting matchup over there. At Southeastern, a beautiful gym over there at the Larry Jordan Gymnasium. So let's go to the FAC. Chillicothe at Washington. This one could be a doozy. Like, have fun scoring in this game.
Yeah, I kind of walked into the show today and looked at the notes, and then you and I sit here and talk for an hour plus, and I'm like, have we said Washington Courthouse yet? Because this is a team that's really, really good, and we knew they were going to be. So we shouldn't be surprised by it. They get the win over Miami Trace there, off to the 7-3 start. They have guys that have been at the varsity level now into their second and third, sometimes fourth year. So this is a good basketball team, and it'd be a great test for Chillicothe, who's off to a great start in its own right, to go over there, and that should be a really good one.
Yeah, and then you've got staying in. Now we'll actually move away. We'll go to the SOC 3 Valley at Waverly, another big one for Valley and a big one for Waverly as well, because every game in this SOC 3 is not a nightmare, but it's a challenge.
Well, it just goes back to what I said earlier. There's going to be so many different matchups that you just got to be ready to go every night if you're going to compete at the highest level of that conference. And there's another example.
Yeah, and then let's jump to the TVC Wellston at Vinton County. We're going to talk to Coach Briggs from Wellston on the Coach's Call-In show, and they're off to a 6-2 start. And this is a big one for Vinton County after they have had a tough little run, and then you've got Meigs already earlier in the week.
Yeah, Vinton County playing at home, big-time rivalry game. The Wellston-Vinton County game each and every year. Incredible crowds, incredible intensity. So yeah, you don't need to say much more than Wellston, Vinton County, and you're usually going to have a pretty good one.
Yeah, then speaking of rivalry games, this is one where you can almost throw the man. I didn't know about it until that volleyball game of Eastern Meigs at Southern. Eastern's coming in at 4-8. They've played a really tough schedule. They've got a 1,000-point scorer in Lloyd, and the Southern team is outstanding as well. Just throw the records out the window. This could be a really fun game.
Yeah, Southern. I mentioned this earlier in the show. If you weren't with us, or maybe you're moving around the timestamps, Southern's a really, really talented basketball team, and I think in the lower division it's going to be an absolute bear come tournament time.
Yeah, 100% agree. So this would be a game to keep your eyes on them. I believe they have the Huddle Fan app as well. So, that's one. And as always, if you just look, when we're not live streaming them, just look around, and you can probably find live streams of a lot of these games as well. But make sure it's, when you go to them, click on who the user is first so you can see. So it's not like you're not going to just some spam thing. You're going to a user that actually puts these games out as well. So let's jump over to Saturday. You've got Zane Trace at Vinton County. I think could be an interesting matchup on Saturday night.
Yeah, certainly could. You mentioned Zane Trace, a team there watching the Huntington-Vinton County game the other night. Obviously, Vinton County showed what they look like when they play at a really high level and shoot the ball well and play really hard. And then you watch them when they started to get timid and maybe didn't get the quality looks or play with the same confidence. So Zane Trace coming off of the league situation throughout the week. That's a busy week for them. Come Saturday, that'll be a test to see if they can gear back up and go on the road.
Yeah, a pretty difficult week ahead for Zane Trace and Vinton County as well.
Well, Vinton County, I guess they have the with that Wellston there on the
and then Meg's on Tuesday as well.
So both teams that Saturday will come down a lot to who's handled the wear and tear of the week.
Yep. Then a really tough one, New Albany at Miami Trace. This is just one to kind of keep an eye on. New Albany got Chillicothe this weekend, and this is just one of those probably going to be a loss, but a really good chance to challenge your program.
Well, but again, I go back to what I said earlier. When you play this schedule, you may lose. Last year they didn't. You know what I mean? But to a lot of the teams they were playing this year, they upped the schedule even again. Yep. And as a result, sometimes you lose, and sometimes you lose again. And how do you handle that? But how can you grow from it? And I agree with you. Miami Trace will be just fine. They just got to continue to grow through each experience.
And then one more league game, Logan Elm at Hamilton Township. Logan Elm, another one whose schedule is not easy to deal with, and for them, any positives, keeping the program moving forward, this would be a chance to get a really big road win.
Oh, no question. Logan Elm, incredible perimeter play. I worry about them sometimes against teams that can really, really hurt you inside. But man, they offset it with a lot of physicality and ball pressure and so forth. So, yeah, really, really good basketball team. And, boy, can they get it going from the perimeter in a hurry. Oh,
they have a bunch of different dudes that can score it. Just offhand, Bennington and Russell have had 5+ threes in games. Neff can score it from pretty much anywhere. Patton's a really efficient scorer as well. It's a really impressive team. Coach Dropsy does a great job with them over at Logan Elm. So if we missed anything in boys basketball, which is possible, but man, we did a lot of boys basketball there. Now we're going to jump over to the girls' side. A game that we streamed, a lot of fun to do this one. Unioto 62, Circleville 39. Don't look at that final score. That's another one where you don't look at the final score. It was a really good game for 2.5 quarters, and then what Unioto was able to do late was really impressive.
Yeah, because, 35-32, about halfway through the third quarter there, was where they were at, and then Unioto went to work and ended up pulling away. But Miley Smith with 29 in the game. I thought Circleville come in with the game plan. They were going to take Beard completely away on the perimeter. As a result, Holbert was able to get some open looks and knock him down early on. Unioto taking Addison Edgington away. I thought, again, similar to Guthrie on the boys' side, I thought Circleville's guard play missed her. Sometimes when teams are taking the person away, it takes ball movement, it takes eyes on the post, recognizing when is she going to come open, where do I need to deliver the ball. I think they can grow from that type of film because they're not going to be the last team that tries to put one in front, one behind her. But as a result, Blakeman, who had recently gone over 1,000 points, had the big first half. And she hit a couple shots there in that third quarter. And again, 35-32. But then when Unioto jumped out and got ahead, Coach Miller then was able to pull the ball out. And Miley Smith down the stretch. Remember I talked about Hirsch on the boys' side? When Miley Smith out on the girls' side forced them to come out and they had to guard her to pressure, well, then then you figure out why the game plan was what it was in the first place. And then all of a sudden 10 becomes 20 in a hurry.
Yeah, and they're a team, Unioto is, where if they can get all three of their scorers to score, which they did in this game. You mentioned Smith with 29, Kara Beard with 12 on 5 of 6 shooting. And she missed
6 shots.
Yeah, she missed her first and then did not miss again. But then Maggie Holbert did a really good job of running the show. They were just letting her go, and I think she was 3 for 4 from 3. Yeah. So, it's hard when you pick one and the one that you pick has the game that, you're like, well, we just kind of roll the dice. And then once that happens, that opens everybody else up. She also had 6 assists to go with her 13 points in the game. You mentioned Blakeman with 18, 14 of those came in the first half. Thought they did a really good job of slowing her down in the second half. But this is a Circleville team, still has a whole lot to play for. Unioto now 8-1 on the season. You got a little bit of something on Circleville as well, right?
Well, then Circleville bounced back. Yeah, I thought that was big. Hillsboro's a really good basketball team this year, and Circleville bounces back. They beat them 50-48. Blakeman had 19, and that Davis of Hillsboro had 17. But you talk about when you play several really, really good opponents in a row, losing's possible. You want to try to avoid the losing streak, and here Circleville is able to do that.
Yeah, they moved to 8-2 on the season, so a nice bounce back as you mentioned for sure. So we're going to stay with one team in the MSL as we will go to the game that I was at on Friday night. Logan Elm, a 60-51 win over Alexander. This was one of those that was like kind of a crazy game in general, as well as it was 24-9. Logan Elm was up after one. At the half, they're up 33-30. And pretty much all it was Palin Ray picked up a second foul, and Logan Elm, for whatever reason, didn't have Kiana Ingram bringing the ball up, so they were having trouble getting the ball up the court. And because of that, Alexander's able to turn them over. Macy Hubbard got really hot from three. She hit 5 threes in that first half, 4 of which came in the second quarter, and really got the Spartans into the game and gave them a bit of a chance. But in that second half, Kiana Ingram just completely took over. 17 points in that second half and just really got going. And then Palin Ray put the game away at the line, 4 for 4 in the last 2 minutes for the 60-51 win.
Yeah, I was following your updates on this, and they were just wild. When I saw the first quarter score, I'm like, what? And then, then they come all the way back. And because we highlighted the guard play coming in with Ingram and Ray and Petty and Groff and so forth. And then on the other side with Hubbard, Ryder and Bean and Huddle. I mean, a lot of good talent in the game. So you come back, halftime score made a little bit more sense, maybe not how we got there.
Right.
But then, as you said, Ingram's really putting together an impressive career there. She's capping this off a little bit. And I know, too, they sometimes struggle against the post presence. We've seen that earlier in the year. If they can figure out a way to tackle that a little bit, this is a team I would just hate to play in a one-and-done format because of their ability to shoot it from the perimeter. On any given night, they could just go up 24-9 in the first quarter on you and bury you.
Yeah, and this was a game where they actually made less threes in it. They only hit 7, which is below their season average. But they were starting to be a little more selective in that second half, because that second half they are shooting at the open end of the alley, which can be a little more difficult, because the first half it wasn't difficult at all for them to shoot. Now it wasn't difficult in the first half for Hubbard to shoot in the first half. I think it was in the first half it was Logan Elm was 5 for 9 from 3, and Alexander was 6 for 10. I mean, it was just a really impressive shooting display from both teams. But Petty hit a 3 in the first half. Groff hit a 3 in the first half. I thought those two played really good, solid floor games as well. Molly Miller, I thought, gave a little bit more than what she was able to do in that Piketon game. You could see her confidence coming back.
Sure.
Jillian Savage, I thought, played really well. And then Leah Gardner, I think, always gives them really good minutes for that Logan Elm team. Now 10-1 for Logan Elm. For Alexander, they're dealing with some injuries. They only played 5 in the game. If you're playing Logan Elm and you're playing 5, it is going to make things a little more difficult. They're 7-4. Hubbard led them with 16 points, 8 rebounds. Lily Ryder had 15 points. Caden Bean with 12.7 rebounds. And then I really liked what Kaylee Hudnall was able to do, 8.6 assists. I thought she really set that offense up in a big way. They're going to win a lot of basketball games.
Now, do we know anything about that moving forward then? Is there an expectation to get kids back?
I'm not sure. They didn't.
Because that's the reason I ask is that's a really good basketball team. All of a sudden at 7-4. Again, they've lost to really good teams, so I don't panic about 4 losses. Yeah. But I look at it and be like, I still don't think, based on what I've seen some of these kids do earlier in their career, I still don't think they've played their very best basketball yet.
Yeah, I don't either. I think if they can if they can deal with some of those injuries, they can get some players back, I think that's going to make them a lot more dangerous throughout the season. But yeah, you could just tell there's a couple of them were pretty hobbled. So we will kind of see on that. So for Alexander dropping to 7-4, but a lot to play for as well. So if they can deal with things, add a little more depth in there as well, it's just going to make them a little bit better. But let's move forward to some of our standout performances. Just like on the boys' side, it's going to be one of those, hey, we can we're gonna talk about maybe some achievements, coach achievements, player achievements, individual games, team accomplishments, things like that. But let's start with a coaching achievement first. Wheelersburg's Dusty Spradlin wins his 400th career game for the Pirates.
Yeah, congratulations. That's outstanding. I always say when you come up on these like 400, I always say like the amazement of the accomplishment, but really the longevity. The longer I coached, I appreciate someone bringing that level of consistency to a program, and then doing it over and over and over and over. I always say it's one thing to have a nice team or maybe a nice class come through. It's another thing to have a really elite program, and that's obviously what that is when you start talking 400.
Yeah, and it's they're off to a 5-2 start this year. They're going to be one of the better teams in the SOC3. We'll talk about them a little bit more in depth on their team later on as we get to some of these games to watch for the week. But he's done such a great job. They've won a regional championship there, got to the Final Four a couple of years ago, and it just feels like every year they're just constantly competitive. They're into the games. They're sometimes it's not the prettiest. I know one of the games last year I saw them really compete hard in was a game where if you looked at like player for player, they probably shouldn't have, and he was able to keep them at least with a chance down the stretch in the game, and that's what makes a good program, good coach, and ultimately why you win those 400 games. I guarantee he would tell you, kind of like what Coach Davis did from North Adams on the call-in show. It's like, well, comes with a lot of good kids. Yes.
No doubt
I know Coach Airy from Peebles said that too. I was like, can you kind of tell us about this? I think it was 7-0 start. He was like, I got some talented kids, and like kind of paused to kind of sell it on like, that's how you win games. Yeah. But at the same time, coaches can make a big impact by keeping those kids interested, involved, and wanting to be there and to fill their roles as they do such a good job with at Wheelersburg. So speaking of a really good coach and a really good program, Coach Close in Waterford, they're only 6-6 on the season, but they had a big win over Belpre. Our Brock Netter was at that game. Brindley Potmeyer had 21 points in the 59-41 win over Belpre.
Yeah, I see. I think these types of years are unbelievable. You go and you win the state title, and then you come back and we're saying they're only 6-6.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you've seen so many examples over the years of what I just said about Coach Spradlin, of having sometimes you have a nice team. Or elite team, elite class, but then there's that rollover where you just keep going, and here they are still off to a 500 start. You know as well as I do in that program, if these kids are already coming back and winning the 6 games here throughout the first 12, it's just a matter of time to where they start taking steps forward and they become the next group. It becomes that reload instead of rebuild.
Yeah, 100%. Now they are, they had lost 4 out of 5 coming into that, but they come back with a big win in a league game. Potmeyer was a starter last year in the state championship winning team. Elsie Malik was another one that's also back, and they also had Ava Hurley, who had double digits in that game. They really only played 6 in that state championship game last year. 3 of them are back, and obviously you lose a Division I player and a couple more players that are playing on in college as well. You're going to take a step back, but man, it's not been the giant step back that you will see from some places. So
those other 3 could play a little bit.
Yeah, that's probably why you're not seeing the 20+ wins and probably a state championship again. But just an outstanding career for those kids. But overall, it's a fun group with Waterford, and always fun to follow what they're able to do. Yeah. So let's move. It's not complete opposite of the district, but it's pretty far away on the district. We'll go over to Peebles. Actually, no, we're going to the complete opposite just for fun because that's our next one anyway. So we're going to Ripley. And Brooklyn Manning scored 21 points in the Blue Jays win over New Boston. The senior has been outstanding for them. They're now 6-3. She averages 15.4 points a game. They've won 4 consecutive games. We just don't hear about Ripley very much because they are brand new to the Southeast District, and they're one of the furthest away. So just really impressed from what Ripley's been able to do.
Yeah, Ripley's a team that's had a recent history of some pretty good girls basketball. The girl's name escapes me. She's playing at Rio now, the outstanding guard that had the injury there late in her high school career. But But no, yeah, I mean, I've watched New Boston play Manchester on film. I watched New Boston play Paint Valley. They're a team that can score a little bit. So Ripley going out and getting 21 from Manning there and getting a win there. Congratulations to them on that 6-3 start.
Yeah, it's been a nice start for them for sure. And just a second, and of course the year doesn't. It's Williams was the last name. I know she got to 1,000 points. Right,
first name was like a Rye or like a.
There's a Z in it.
Yeah,
I know that.
She was really good.
You want to know how athletic she was? She was done with her eligibility at Rio in basketball. She went and played soccer this year. It's like, hey, you can just do something for another year while you're finishing up your school. I'll just go play soccer.
She was really good.
Yeah, it's a really talented athlete over there for the Blue Jays. So, and I'll tell you what, if you don't follow the Ripley account on Twitter, they share everything. It's the best Twitter account in the Southeast District as far as updates on.
Learn something every time I do overtime
from the entire district as well. It's not just it's not just win or lose either. It's or it's not just wins. It's every day. It's whatever happens. So now let's go over a little bit more. We'll stay in the shack. We talked about it earlier in the year. Sophomore Kendall Myers from Peebles with another huge game. Didn't have 30 boards this time. Only 18, but 22 points, 18 rebounds, and a win over East Clinton. Sophomore average is 16.8 points a game and 11 rebounds a game for the Indians.
Yeah, you love the rebounding because that stat has such a want-to attached to it. So whenever you have a kid that can not only score the basketball, but they bring you that steadiness. You and I talk all the time about the importance of the rebounding stat and the turnover stat. Well, sometimes the turnover stat is part of your basketball skill and the fundamentals, but it's also the other team. Rebounding can be the same way with the size and athleticism of the opponent, but if you have a little bit of that motor for the basketball, you can offset that a little bit, and I think that's certainly what you get with Myers.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Let's go to the SVC. Adena. I know you had a note on Marley Halcomb. You wanted to say a little bit about her.
Yeah, I think she's quietly having one of the best seasons in our entire coverage area. I really do. And the reason I say that is the efficiency she's doing it with, and she has Adena at the 500 mark, and she's kept them in the top half. And I feel like she has a lot to do with what's separating her basketball team from a lot of the teams in the middle to bottom. And the reason I say that is, they've lost some kids to graduation and they've lost some kids that decided not to play. They have the coaching change. But what you're seeing is a program that's carried over a lot of the same X's and O's. A lot of these kids have come up running those X's and O's. So when I watch Halcomb play, like she had 25, for example, against Paint Valley, she was 11 of 13 from the floor. I mean, you're talking about a kid that knocked down like 3 triples. And then she had 22, I think it was, against Zane Trace in a 6-point win. So she is almost individually in these games that are be playing in the high 30s, low 40s. She's almost individually, offensively, like carrying teams throughout the Paint Valley, the Zane Trace, some of those games that we've seen. And I think she's doing it at a really efficient level. She's a really, really good player. And like I said, she's putting together a career that's kind of flying under the radar for some reason. I don't know if it's because of how good Unioto is in the league. Piketon this year has kind of pushed themselves into it. We're going to talk about them here in just a second. But I think people really need to notice what Marley Halcomb's doing. She's a terrific player.
Yeah, over her last 3 games, all wins, she's averaging over 20 points a game for the Warriors as they are now 5-5 after a tough start. And we talked the other day to Coach Newland on the Haynesville Healthcare Coaches Call-In show of just how tough that schedule was to start the year. And
Unioto, Sheridan, Piketon. I mean, it's been some good to Miami Trace. I mean, good.
And then one of the they have a really nice freshman, Josie Mallow, as well. So
she's off to a nice start.
So this is a team that not a whole lot of seniors, a lot of juniors, with the Farrell sisters as well. JC Jones only a sophomore. So, I mean, you've got some kids that are going to be coming back. And this is a team that's just going to keep building throughout the year.
Yeah, and I love how they understand their X's and O's and they execute really well and they get quality shots. And she, like you said, I'm glad you mentioned a couple of those others because she has some kids around her, both Farrells, that do a nice job. But I even think that there's times where Halcomb probably needs to seek her shot a little bit more, and I think she could really be a big-time scorer, and you're starting to see that here a little bit as she starts to get it going.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Let's stay in the SVC.
Okay.
A team that's you mentioned in there a little bit with Piketon, now 8-3. Tough schedule. Their losses have been to some really good teams, but man, this is a team that they're starting to play some really good basketball.
Yeah, they are, and I don't think people have given them credit. I think the blowout loss to Unioto, and again, I kind of said going in, I didn't love that matchup. I thought, unfortunately, that both teams kind of like to play a little bit of the same way, and Unioto's just going to do it with a different level of talent. But the Piketon kids, when you consider 8-3, and then you look at like a win against Waverly, what they go on to do, and then you look at some different wins against other teams, and before you know it, you look at like what you just said about Logan Elm, and that was a competitive game we had on stream. And I think, again, we need to probably appreciate what Piketon kids are on the verge of doing. I watched them the other day in a game against Huntington, where Huntington's a team in the SVC that can really get you playing their tempo. They're an older team, so it's hard to just take the ball from them. They're going to handle the basketball, but then they're a really big, long team that's going to play some zone against you and slow you down. I thought Piketon did a really good job after a 14-11 first half. Points were really hard to come by. Piketon only up 3. Piketon then found some holes in the zone and really got their guards involved off the dribble. And Kelly ended up with 18 in that game. They ended up scoring 16 points in the third quarter after only scoring 14 in the first half, and they were able to do just enough. And again, sometimes that's what it's all about: win the game. You know what I mean? Like figure out what it takes to win that game, win that matchup. And the older these girls get, the nucleus of this team still in the junior class, the older they get, they slowly but surely are starting to find ways to win. Keep in mind, they've lost to 3 really good basketball teams, and then they've even beaten a couple really good ones. So they're basically at the halfway mark at 8-3. I'm just anxious to kind of see what the second half of the season has in store for the Lady Red Streaks.
Yeah, they've won 4 straight games. You mentioned Kelly, Jalen Forbes, Reese Shanks. They've got some really nice pieces. I really like what Taylor Roberts has started to do as a freshman.
Daniels.
Yeah, Daniels as well. Hale can stretch the floor for him.
Hale hit a big shot. She's a weapon against zone. When she just sets her feet in the corner, the guards have to be aware of that. They've got to be able to get her shots. She knocked down a big 3 in that run the other day in the third quarter.
Yeah, just a really nicely put together team, well-coached team as well. So I look forward to seeing them throughout the year. As halfway through, 8 wins already, a nice season to start for Piketon. But to start their season, they just hammered Waverly, and since then, Waverly's been okay. I mean, they're 8-2 on the season, so didn't look very good in their opener. I know they had a big, sizable loss at Logan Elm as well, which a lot of teams have lost to Logan Elm this year. But really, they've been really good so far this year.
Yeah, they really have, and that's what I said. You watch on opening night, maybe we weren't appreciating just how good Piketon was or is.
Yeah.
And since then, Waverly's really started to find itself. They too are very athletic. They have some kids that can really guard, can really rebound, can really run the court. I think sometimes they get themselves in trouble when they don't clean up some of the ball handling, some of the dribble pass catch. When they can, I think they have kids that can really score it. So, I mean, at 8-2, with some of the teams they've played against, that's an outstanding start.
Yeah, just a really good start for them. And then we're gonna stay in the SOC 3. When you look at, Portsmouth West, it is quietly 9-1 on the season, and they have the only loss of the season for North Adams.
Yeah, again, I know you were high on them earlier in the year. You had a chance to see them, and they too. I think again, as all these teams played each other early in the year, we weren't sure what to expect, and now we're starting to learn more about them, and we're really liking what we're learning. I mean, and it's. As you start to get into some of these SOC matchups, I'm really, really intrigued to see what Waverly and West are sitting at here in, say, 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, their only loss was a loss at 7-2 Warren, who's got a Division I player, and I mean they're a very solid program, and things are going to get a little more interesting this week. We'll talk about that in our games to watch.
Okay.
But yeah, they've just looking at their next 6 games: at Berg, at Waverly, versus Alexander, at Valley, versus Minford, and then versus Valley again. So I mean that's a pretty nice 6-game stretch for them coming up. So we'll see a lot of what we'll know a little bit more about the Senators coming up at that time. But we don't talk about the SOC2 very much. Now, Eastern Pike off to a 2-0 start in SOC2. What can you tell us about them?
Yeah, aren't they like 2-6
Right.
overall or something?
Yeah.
So it just goes back to, and shows you that sometimes you're a really elite team, and the non-league schedule you play might allow you to put together a great overall record. Here's a team that at 2-6 has played some really quality opponents,
Including West.
and so now as they start to get into the SOC2 schedule or the heart of the schedule, I'm anxious to see how it pays off, because remember what I said earlier on the boys coverage? Sometimes you play these games and you lose. It kills your confidence. How do you handle losing? Well, now when they take the floor, they've got to have the confidence of a 2-0 team, not a 2-6 team, and they got to be able to start checking boxes if they want to compete for a league title, which I know they want to. So that's intriguing to me to see how some of these head-to-head matchups go. But I think we're seeing that with a lot of different conference leaders that have tested themselves in the non-league. They might not be as good as they have been in past years, but they're still playing that level of schedule. And as a result, they might be losing more games than you're used to seeing them lose. But let's not panic. Let's see if it can make them better as the league play starts back up here in January.
Yeah, got a couple of interesting games this week for them, because they've got South Gaia, who is 4-3 overall, but is 1-0 in the league. That's on Monday, and then on Thursday they're at Sims Valley, who's 1-8 overall, but 1-0 in the league, because they've played a really tough schedule as well. So I mean, the SOC2, you just kind of never know what you're going to get once league play starts. But now it's getting started, and things should get a little more interesting down the road.
And again, I give hats off to the SOC, because I think they've been one of the more creative realignment things in their conferences. And what happens with teams in the 2 smaller divisions of the SOC, there's only so many teams to play, right? So in your non-league, chances are they're playing teams with much bigger enrollments, and we've highlighted there's some really good basketball teams on the girls' side in our coverage area. So it doesn't take long in scheduling to rack up 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 losses here throughout the first half of the year.
Yeah, they can definitely add up in a big way. So you mentioned some of the good teams in our area. So let's jump to, it's probably going to be the best game in the area this week, and it's going to be 2 teams near or at the top of the shack on their own side. You've got 6-1 North Adams at 8-1 Fayetteville on Monday night. Man, this one should be a really fun one.
Well, it's just a huge game in the shack there, but both teams trying to kind of take, I won't say a stranglehold of the top, but at least control of the top, right, in terms of going to head. And, man, there's some outstanding individual players. Take us through some of those.
Yeah, on the North Adams side, you have Tinsley Burns, 17.9 points a game. Emma Pistol, 15.9 points a game. So you're getting 34 points a game from those two. And, I mean, and you're not having to score a ton without them. But, Ava Pistol can play as well for North Adams. Davis can really play. They've got some nice pieces, but it's really those top 2, point guard Tinsley Burns, just unreal player. If you saw Branson Copas from a couple years ago, it's very similar bounce and tempo to her game, and she does an outstanding job. Can really step outside, and she can get whatever shot she really wants. Yeah. And then Emma Pistol can step to the mid range a little bit as well, but she can score inside as well. They've got some nice pieces. They go about 7 or 8 deep as well. Coach Davis always does an outstanding job for North Adams. But then you look at another team that has a lot of depth, and it's Fayetteville. They finally lost. They lose 47-40 to a really good Western Brown team. in the Holiday Classic over there in Brown County. But they bounce right back and just absolutely hammer Summit Country Day team. I got to make sure to get that right because there is just a Country Day and there's a Summit Country Day. So, of course, you can't just come up with a different name for your hoity-toity school. So, I think I used the right term there. But Kara Rummel leads them with 11.8 points a game. Christina Murphy, 11.3 points a game. Aubrey Barber with 10 points a game. All are juniors also for this Fayetteville team. Lily Carler with 9.2. She's a senior. But then they have Lindy Carler with 8.4 points a game. Those all five just standouts. And then they have three more players. They play 8 or 9 a game as well. So, I mean, they're a team that has a lot of depth. They play fast. They can shoot the ball. Barber does a great job of finding players. Rummel can just kind of go off whenever, and Murphy obviously has been really good throughout the year as well. This is a really good team in Fayetteville. This is going to be a really outstanding game on Monday night.
Yeah, well, the depth is what jumps out at you about Fayetteville when you study them. But man, with North Adams, we always say with the guard play, you can win tempo and you can really control the way the game's played when you're that elite at guard. Man, that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that's going to be a must-watch down there in the Shack, as I think both are probably going to win their own side of the Shack. So this is probably just like the biggest bragging rights game out of all of it, because it still counts as a league game, but they only play each other once instead of twice, where most leagues play twice, but they're in different divisions, so it ends up not carrying over. So this one, keep an eye out on that one on Monday night. Our streaming game of the week for girls will be on Saturday night. Will be the Kingston National Bank SVC game of the week. Is going to be Zane Trace at Paint Valley. Early in the season, when we kind of scheduled this, was kind of like we thought this may have been a lower in the standings game, kind of, But man, this Paint Valley team's played really well so far this year.
Well, halfway home on the overall schedule, and here they are at 6-5 after a win over New Boston, where Karis Dye had 18 points, had 7 steals in that game, and then Whitney Oots, we've highlighted her 14 points. Something jumped out at me in the box score there too. That the Nevy Conley 7 assists, 0 turnovers. Mm-hmm. So you talk about a team that's still trying to grow at the point guard position. When you have a senior who's not a point guard, but a senior who's just as a player recognizes what Coach Norman's trying to do in their sets. Understand where Dye needs to catch it, understands where teammates need to catch it, and she's able to deliver the ball and do so in an efficiency of not turning it over. That's great. And then Maya Collier, another young player that continues just to get better every time I turn the film on. She had 8 points. So yeah, for them to be 6-5, they'll have the incredible test at Unioto before we get to this stream game with Zane Trace. But no, Paint Valley here in the first half of the year has made some really, really nice strides. And then over on the Zane Trace side at 3-7, they too play Unioto Monday. I think that's the makeup where Unioto was playing in one of those weekend things. But Zane Trace had a really nice win over a solid River Valley team in overtime. I know Emma Houston has shot the ball real well for them in some key spots. So no, I'm anxious to go out there and call that one on Saturday. A big game for both teams and what they're trying to each accomplish in their season.
Yeah, over the last, really going back to 2014, it's been pretty tough for the Zane Trace program, but it seems like they're starting to move in the right direction. 5 wins a year ago, they're already at 3 this year, so it's you're kind of constantly turning over coaches, which does not help any program. But Coach Singer, I think, is doing a good job of getting kids out and rejuvenating the program a little bit. And you can see it in wins like that one over River Valley on Saturday, because River Valley with a 1,000-point score is a quality program.
Good win. And these teams played back in earlier December. Paint Valley won over at Zane Trace 53-32. That final score got away a little bit later. Paint Valley did control the game most of the way, but it was a little closer than that throughout the first half. Dye had 17 in that win. Delaney Mannion with 14 for Paint Valley. So Paint Valley plays, 8, 9 different kids can get a lot of contributions with Dye leading the way. Zane Trace, again, I thought Houston made some big shots in that River Valley game. I think their guard play will be really important in this one. Paint Valley can get after the basketball a little bit, and Zane Trace needs to be able to take care of the ball to be able to attack that in the scrimmage area.
Yeah, this is a Paint Valley team program that had only won 6 games over the last 2 years, so getting the 6 wins so far this year, a really good start for them. And that game out at Zane Trace was pretty close until late in the third, early fourth, when Paint Valley was able to do some things and pull away in that one. So I think this has the opportunity to be a really good game. So don't look at that first score as you get ready to watch this game on Saturday night. This one should be a fun one over in the Bainbridge area.
Yeah, no question about it. Looking forward to doing it.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed this. I always throw out the Bainbridge area. I'm like, it's still not in Bainbridge. Like some of these schools, like where they're at, and I'm like, working out there, I'm like driving out, I'm like, I'm still not to Bainbridge. I'm closer to Bourneville, which I don't think is true, but whatever. I'm a big geography guy. I'm not a geography guy.
Depending on where you want Bainbridge to start, you're closer to Bainbridge.
Yeah. So whatever.
Yeah.
So this will be this is the quality this is the quality stuff that we have for sure. So let's jump over to some games to watch this week. As we start to wind down our episode and we get out of geography talk, we will jump to some of the big ones this week. We talked about both teams already a little bit. On Monday, you've got 9-1 West at 5-2 Wheelersburg. Should be a really fun matchup.
I think it's a big game for West. I mean, not that it's not for Wheelersburg as well, but West off to a 9-1 start. You go on the road, you go somewhere like a Wheelersburg. We just talked about what that program's accomplished under Coach Spradlin. And I just think it's a game where if you're West, when you're off to a 9-1 start, you're beyond, okay, we want to have a good year, we want to have a great year. Mm-hmm. So you want to establish yourself going in the second half of the year as like, no, this is who we are. And I just, again, that's not to say it's not a big game for Wheelersburg, because it is. Mm-hmm. It's a huge game in the standings. But for whatever reason, when I saw in your notes you had that game down, I just felt like for West going on the road. Do you follow what I'm thinking there a little bit?
Yeah, 100%. Because it's you want to take care of business at home, but when you go on the road, it's huge for you, because especially when you're playing less games as well. If you can win on the road and take care of business at home, then you're
and just go beat them yourself. Don't get in a situation like in the head-to-head. You go beat them. Don't get in a position where hey, we're having a really nice year if we can get someone to help us out and get them. No. This is your opportunity now at 9-1 to go get them yourself.
Yeah, and one of the most fun games that we've done. Me and Dewey went down a few years ago. It was the first time West had ever won the SOC 2 at the time. I think it was the year before it went to the 3 divisions, and they had to beat Wheelersburg to do it. Mm-hmm. And just you just saw how much, it was a packed gym for a girls' game, which is always great. It was like a midweek game as well, which makes the packed gym even more impressive. Right. But it was just a great atmosphere, and it was a really good game. And it was because what Wheelersburg's program has been. So getting that win helps set West up for what's been a really successful last few years. Was you get that win, and now the next year you win another district, and and last year you took a slight step back, just losing in the district finals, but now you're really set up well again. Macy Wisman, outstanding player Haley Carver, you have Braley Pistol, you got some really nice pieces for West. So this is a big time matchup for them. You got Prather and Ward. Or Prather and May, a couple really experienced players there. Artrip, DeHart. You've got a couple really nice young players as well for Wheelersburg. Dusty Spradlin with significantly more wins than Coach Martin does, because he's in his first year there. But what I saw of them, he's done a really nice job as well. This would be a really fun matchup.
Yeah, well, and this is where I think Coach Spradlin's really dangerous too, because you get the West, the 9-1 mark coming in, and then they're at Wheelersburg. It's not very often they get to play I got the 9-1 team. We'll see what we can do. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden they become a really dangerous team. They're playing at home.
Yeah, so it's that one should be a really fun one for sure. Then we got South Webster at Valley is another one on Monday. This is just the SOC 3 at this point. Then you've got 6-3 Minford at 8-2 Waverly as well.
Yeah, just getting into conference play now. There's going to be some things for us to sort out here in the next week or two, and we've highlighted each of these teams individually if you go back through the show and listen. But I'm anxious just to see how some of these head-to-head matchups play out here in round one as they start playing in January.
Yeah, and then we've got an interesting one on Tuesday. We'll be at Logan, a preview of the MSL Buckeye in the future.
Yeah.
Circleville at Logan. It's just you're playing a little bigger school. You have a college 3-point champion coaching Logan at this point. And then, the Circleville team has had a really nice start to the year. They're 8-2. Be a tough matchup in the House of the Purple.
Yeah, I think for Circleville, it just continues what we're talking about with the schedule they've been playing. Yeah, I mean, you play in the tough conference, you go out of conference, you're playing Unioto, you're playing Hillsboro. Now with Logan, it's kind of like what we're talking about. Continue to push yourself. You've got an experienced group, and know that you're going to grow one way or the other from every experience that you gather as you try to go down the stretch and win a conference title and compete into the district level, hopefully.
Yeah, and it's should be a fun one over there. And then Thursday, we got West at Waverly. That's kind of a build off of West 9-1. Whatever happens on Tuesday, you got to follow it up with a really tough Waverly team.
Well, first of all, how about that week?
Yeah.
I mean, at Wheelersburg, at Waverly. So again, if you're West, I just think the time is now. As I said earlier, you could really, really make a statement with some road wins this week. And really put yourself in a nice position when the two of us sit down to talk next week.
Yes, and then another one that I think will be pretty interesting. I don't know the last time Portsmouth-Clay beat Notre Dame. So this will be a really good individual matchup as well. You got Clay at Notre Dame on Thursday as well.
Yeah, obviously Green is put together quite a little spurt here. And, so now you Notre Dame's still a nice team. Clay obviously off to a great start. They've got a group that continues to grow experience-wise, well coached. That they continue to try to prove. But man, I tell you, you look at their schedule. They're in a position here to win quite a few basketball games. So I'm sure a matchup like this at Notre Dame is a measuring stick game that they're excited to play.
Yeah, you got Jason Bryant, who's been outstanding for Notre Dame, and then for Clay, you have Emnett. 8.8 assists to go along with 18.4 points a game, and then Sophia Kraft with. I want to make sure. I thought it was Sophia. I want to make sure it wasn't Sophie because I think that one vowel is a big difference on some of them. Kraft has been really good throughout her career. 17.7 points, 9.4 rebounds, and then 4.3 assists for her per game. It's a team that they don't have a lot of players, but man, they've started to win a lot of games. They're 8-2. This would be a really big program win for Clay to get a win
I agree.
At Notre Dame.
I agree completely.
And then you've got a really big one in the MSL Buckeye on Thursday. Fairfield Union, 7-2 overall, 3-0 in the MSL at 10-1 Logan Elm.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I share the same opinion on Logan Elm. We just really, really enjoy watching them play and their guard play, and we know that Fairfield Union has been a group that's really kind of found an identity here in recent years with their defense. So. What a great matchup in terms of the athleticism of Fairfield Union trying to slow down that guard play of Logan Elm.
Mm-hmm. That one should be a fun one for sure out there. That could be a knockdown, drag-out battle. Really good guard play in that one. Saturday, Adena at Westfall. That's got an opportunity to be really interesting as well. The first one got a little out of hand for Westfall due to some foul trouble, but I like the makeup of what they've got, and it should be an interesting matchup for them.
Well, I went back to what I said earlier about Adena. You look on paper and Westfall. Westfall has the ability to really score the basketball with Cook at the guard spot there, and then obviously Mel and Baldwin and Mel. The other Mel's coming on quite a bit, but I've been real impressed with Adena. Halcom's giving them the scoring punch, then they really execute their stuff and they defend at a high level. But you're right, Westfall's been hanging on and or hanging in there, I should
Yeah.
say, in terms of not letting the year get away. I feel like this group really needs a win they can hang the hat on a little bit. And I think a team like Adena, with what they've accomplished in recent years in this league, would certainly be one of those types. And I'm sure Westfall's excited to play them at home.
Yeah, and then you've got a really fun coaching matchup on Saturday. Eastern Brown, Coach Pickerel at North Adams, and Coach Davis, two really elite coaches in the Southeast District, with some really talented players and some good teams.
I've enjoyed hearing both of those coaches on our call-in show and talking about their respective teams. I know Eastern Brown trying to get the most out of this first half of the year before they kind of re-identify who they are, and then obviously North Adams. We just talked about them a second ago. I turned on a scrimmage film, not even knowing who the kid was. And I watched like 2 or 3 possessions of the first scrimmage, and I was like, well, wait, she's different.
Yes.
I mean, and then that was, kind of the way I was introduced to the talented guard. So I'm a big North Adams fan just because I love guard play.
Yeah, and that one should be a really fun one to watch for sure. So I think that's about it for this week. I mean, we went 2.5 hours.
Yeah, awesome coverage. Basketball season's exciting for both of us. Again, I appreciate your effort with the timestamps, because what I'm hearing from a lot of people, you and I had looked earlier in the year, should we cut down the time? And then the feedback we were getting is, hey, we really appreciate the depth that you talk about our kids. So we're like, hey, let's just go ahead and hit record and just talk. And then your incredible effort with the timestamps, I think a lot of people throughout the coverage area, because again, SOSA's coverage area is growing so much that you really can't just sit down in a half hour and talk about these kids. You know what I mean? They deserve a lot more than that. And I know you and I really enjoy doing it. It's been a pleasure to do it.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun thing to do, but also at the same time can be kind of challenging at times. But that's why if you're like, oh, what's this idiot doing on his computer? Well, I'm putting the time into where, because here in 50 minutes, we'll start recording the Haynesville Healthcare Coaches Call-In Show. So it's just kind of we got a lot going on. So, but it's for the kids, and that's why we do it.
And that's why I say we're the first to understand that our coverage area is really, really big. If we're missing someone, tell us.
Yeah.
And we love the game, so we're going to go research it, and then we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, because we definitely touched our corners today, but if we missed anything, just let us know. We're good with it. Like I said, I'm not good with positive things, but if you just give me negative feedback, I'm great with that. Like I'll be like,
we had your Timmy reference, and then the one classic that I don't want to let go to get away is the beep beep on the Jeeps there. The beep beep might be my favorite overtime.
I'm telling you, we're making a new intro. I got to figure out the music part, and I might have put.
Well, you're not going to bother me. I'm a hard person to embarrass. You're not going to bother me. I'm just saying, like, you might want to take a look at the beep beep.
Yeah, I might have put myself in this multiple times. So, I already typed in geography talk at one point of like, I got to go back and see if that's clippable. So, we'll kind of see. So, get ready. This might be the last episode with Dewey, for now, until he has to come in and when I go on like 12 vacations in the summer. But so anything else?
That'll do it.
All right. So we got streams Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. Monday, Fairland at Chesapeake Boys. Tuesday is Eastern Brown at Peebles Boys. Friday, South Webster at West Boys. And then our Kingston National Bank SVC game of the week on Saturday will be Zane Trace at Paint Valley Girls. So all of those are brought to you by the good people at Ohio Health. Keep an eye out for everything we do. Derek and Brock, they had Bad Company this week. A good episode of that as well. I had to edit. I learned, if we did have to edit, I found out how to edit because those two were like, hey, well, there's something in there we got to edit. I'm like, well, I don't know how to do it. I don't know why Dewey didn't like editing. Well, that was why. I found out pretty quick. So then we got the Haynesville Healthcare Coaches Call-In Show on Sunday nights at 7 o'clock. We got a couple of guests in this week. One, it's not the Xfinity series anymore. It just changed its name. The Bush series. Oh, definitely can't say that, actually. I might edit that part out. It's the second series behind whatever the top of NASCAR is.
Oh, yeah. So, I'm the wrong guy to ask.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to learn about it here in about, like I said, about 45 minutes. I'm going to learn about it. So looking forward to that. And then we're going to have a couple players in from Chillicothe, and we've also got 6 really good coaches calling in tonight as well. So looking forward to that. So if you missed the Coaches Call-In show, the timestamps on that will be up on Sunday night as well. So, and, we gave you 30 different games to go watch this week as well in our games to watch. So go out and watch some games, support the kids, and then we'll be here anytime you need us with our YouTube page. And there's a lot of other places as well, streaming games as well. Support them, support the people that support them, that support us as well. So, so I think that's going to be it. For Shayne Combs, I'm John Bruce. You've been watching the Southern Ohio Sports Authority Overtime presented by Perfection One. Have a great rest of your week.